This podcast of the Equine Forum is brought to you by the University of Louisville Equine Industry Program at the College of Business. It all begins in 15 seconds right after this word from our podcast sponsor.
The University of Louisville Equine Industry Program at the College of Business is now offering a graduate certificate, which can be completed in 15 or 30 weeks and be done as a standalone or used as 20% of your MBA. Classes at both the undergraduate and graduate level are forming now for August.
From the rail to your radio, this is the Horse Racing Radio Network.
Prison Star throwing off. He's in front by 15, by 18. Prison Star takes the Belmont, just like his daddy Secretariat did.
Rachel Alexandra, Macho again. They're coming down to the finish. It's going to be desperately close. Here's the wire. Rachel won. She is indeed Rachel Alexandra the Great.
Welcome to the Equine Forum, presented by Twinspires.
Include me, outrunning a huge one. My Miss Aurelia's between those two in with a late shot. Can Royal Delta hold on? My Miss Aurelia's trying to get her late. Royal Delta, My Miss Aurelia, here is a champion again. Royal Delta has won the Breeders' Cup Ladies Classic.
Star of the North is approaching the 8th pole and 3 lengths clear. Wink Texas back there in second. That's a lot of Blingas trying to race into that second spot. Star of the North for a final 16th of stargazing on Texas Preview Day. And her name is Star of the North. Impressive in the 2 Altazano.
Now here's Mike Penna.
Good morning once again, everyone. It is post time for the show that launched a network, the Equine Forum, presented by Twinspires right here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. Mike Penna, Baron of the Backstretch, off and running with you again here this morning, right up until 11 a.m. Eastern on Sirius 216, XM 204, affiliates in Lexington, Louisville, and across the country. And, of course, you're listening via streaming as well. We stream worldwide and podcast all of our shows on our website, horseracingradio.net, or wherever you access your podcasts. What a fantastic open to the show. We get a chance this afternoon, to celebrate some of the best to ever do it on the racetrack. Risen Star, Rachel Alexandra, Royal Delta. I mean, those horses will be honored later today and remembered later today with races named in their honor. And those races have attracted some really, really top-notch runners. And you can say the Risen Star may be the deepest Kentucky Derby prep race we've seen so far, and I think you'd be 100% right. Last week, I asked you if Wonder Wheel was the best 3-year-old of any gender racing last Saturday. 22% of you responded absolutely, while 78% said no way. And you were right. Wonder Wheel wasn't even the best 3-year-old in her own race. But I'd be shocked, absolutely shocked, if Dreaming of Snow ever beats Wonder Wheel again. So I'm going to go back to the well, and I'm going to ask that same question this morning, but I think it's a much more interesting question today. Unlike last week, where the 3 major Kentucky Derby points races were viewed as second tier, with the horses competing in those races expected by many to have very, very little impact on the first Saturday in May. Of course, time is going to tell if that view is right or wrong, but today is a completely different scenario. And although there is just one Derby points race being run in the U.S. this afternoon, it is the deepest we have seen so far, and certainly appears to be the strongest top to bottom. That's the Grade 2 Risen Star at the Fairgrounds. That's also one of it is the first of 7 Derby preps offering 50 points to the winner, which will virtually guarantee that horse a spot in the starting gate on the first Saturday in May, which, by the way, for those of you wondering, the first Saturday in May, and this will warm you up for those of you dealing with some chilly temperatures this morning, 77 days, 9 hours, 40 minutes, and 40 seconds away. That's it. It'll be here before we know it. And it's a wonderful thought on this Saturday morning. Now, the female counterpart to the Risen Star today is the Grade 2 Rachel Alexandra. And we're going to see the return of Hoosier Filly, who, with Wonder Wheel's upset loss last weekend, now has the opportunity to state her case for the top 3-year-old filly in training. When trainer Tom Amos joined me on the show after her win in the Goldenrod last November, he talked about entering her in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile against the boys following her maiden win on September 25th, which he did. She didn't draw in that day, but it certainly indicates that Tom Amos and the connections are open or more than willing to take on the boys if she continues to display the same brilliance we have seen in her first 3 career starts. So I think the poll question this morning is extremely interesting. I think it's going to yield much different results than what we saw with the Wonder Wheel question last Saturday. So here's the poll question. Is Hoosier Filly the best 3-year-old of any gender racing today? And I'll give you the same 2 options to respond. Absolutely or no way. You can go to @HRRN on Twitter, Horse Racing Radio Network on Facebook, or you can email the show with your thoughts on that question, mike@horseracingradio.net. Is Hoosier Filly the best 3-year-old of any gender racing today? Absolutely or no way. And I think what makes it interesting is the fact that you have that very deep Risen Star Stakes being contested later on that same card at the fairgrounds. So let me know your thoughts on our Twitter feed, on Facebook, or email the show. Another spin off of this question that comes to mind, and many of you may view this next statement as blasphemy, but would it be wrong to say that Hoosier Filly is actually better than Rachel Alexandra? Yeah, I know, the Barons lost it, right? You certainly can't make that statement about their careers as a whole because we don't know what the rest of the script is going to look like for Hoosier Filly. I mean, who knows? She might not win another race. She may never lose a race. So we can't make that statement about their careers as a whole. Rachel Alexandra is a Hall of Famer. But if you're going to compare apples to apples, and you're going to look at what Hoosier Filly has accomplished in her 3 starts compared to where Rachel was after her first 3, it's almost impossible to say that Hoosier Filly is not better than Rachel Alexandra. Hoosier Filly is perfect. She's 3 for 3, and she's already a Grade 2 winner. Rachel Alexandra, she eventually put together that remarkable Hall of Fame career, but through 3 starts, her record was 1 win, 2 losses. You might have forgotten about that. I certainly did. We think of Rachel Alexandra as the brilliant filly and mare that she was. But she didn't start off that way. She was 6th in her debut, at odds of 26-1, by the way. That seems unfathomable that you would ever get 26-1 on Rachel Alexandra. Then she breaks her maiden in her second start at 12-1. Yeah, you could have gotten 12-1 on Rachel. And she comes up a half length short in her third start, her stakes debut, the Grade 3 debutante. So she sits there with 1 win and 2 losses after 3 career starts. So if we're going to compare only the way that those 2 fillies have started their careers, you're damn right. Hoosier Filly has been better. There's no denying it. Hoosier Filly has never been 26-1. She's never been 12-1. She's been heavily favored in all 3 career starts, and she's already a 2-time stakes winner. So, yeah, through 3 starts, Hoosier Filly is better than Rachel Alexandra. Will it turn out that way at the end of her career? Time will tell. But Rachel set that bar pretty high. With that said, I'll be playing against her today, as I think there is one filly in that race more than capable of pulling off the upset over Hoosier Philly. But I'm going to save that for later in the show. Kevin Kirstein is the publicity manager at Churchill Downs. He is at the fairgrounds. He's going to join me at 9 o'clock Eastern to share his thoughts on Hoosier Philly. He's also going to talk about the entire Derby picture. You had the Derby future bets at Churchill Downs last weekend. Hoosier Philly was among the choices that bettors could choose for the Kentucky Derby. Another indication that her connections are thinking, hey, we'll take a shot against the boys at some point before we get to Louisville, and we're thinking first Saturday in May, not first Friday in May. And that's a question I'm going to have for Dale and Tim at 10:30 Eastern. Should the connections of Hoosier Philly, considering how brilliant she has been, be thinking about the first Saturday in May, not the first Friday in May? Should that be their ultimate goal? It would be fun to see. But look, we're kind of putting the cart before the horse here. Hoosier Philly, as brilliant as she was at 2, has to prove, just like Wonder Wheel last weekend, that she's taken steps forward over the past few months and that she can continue to be brilliant at 3. So and she has to take care of business in the Rachel Alexandra. And as I told you, I don't think she's a shoo-in. I'll tell you about the filly I think can win that race later in the first hour of the program. Especially when you consider the fact that this is not the ultimate goal for Hoosier Philly. It's a starting point, just like it was for Wonder Wheel last weekend. This is also Texas Preview Day at Sam Houston. And that's the big race day that's held in advance of Texas Champions Day, which is going to take place on March 25th. There are 5 $75,000 stakes races, which will highlight that program. And unlike earlier this meet, you will have the chance to watch and wager as simulcasting has resumed at that Houston track. And that is welcome news to horsemen in the Lone Star State. I'm going to be joined by Sam Houston Assistant General Manager Frank Hoff coming up at 9:40 Eastern. He'll have more on that story, and he'll preview today's races for you. I'm also going to bring you this week's edition of Unsung Heroes in the second hour of the show. And I'll visit with Twinspires / Fairgrounds handicapper Joe Kristufek to kick off hour 3 at 10 o'clock Eastern. He'll have the Twinspires triple play. 3 races you can keep an eye on later today. And spoiler alert, one of those is the Risen Star Stakes. Joe will walk through the entire field, or at least the horses he thinks are major players in there, and there are several in a wide-open race. You have our Stroll Through Racing History with Kurt Becker. That's presented by Keeneland. Comes up at 10:20. And at 10:30, Dale Romans, Tim Wilkin will both be here for this week's edition of I Ask, They Answer. When I come back, though, you're going to hear the story of pure courage from Vernon Bush. Vernon Bush, the journeyman jockey, 61 years old? 63? I think he's 61. Vernon was just awarded the Randy Romero Pure Courage Award. And that's quite an honor. He's the 3rd recipient of that award that was started by Randy's former agent and longtime friend. And you're going to hear from Vernon coming up here in the next segment at 8:15 Eastern. He'll share his thoughts on Randy. He'll share his thoughts on being honored in that fashion. He's going to talk about jockeys and what they go through on a daily basis, the constant struggles that they go through. He'll talk about the mental health issues that they face. And he's going to talk about some of the other things that he's had to overcome in his career. So that kicks off the show. 8:35, we'll take a look at the big races at Laurel today, the Barbara Fritchie and the General George. You're going to hear from our Bobby Neuman and Dave Friedman as they previewed both of those races on yesterday's Weekend Stakes preview show. I'm going to play that segment for you. Calling All 3-Year-Olds presented by Spendthrift comes up toward the end of the first hour. And again, Kevin Kirstein at 9 o'clock, Unsung Heroes 9:20, and at 9:40, Frank Hoff from Sam Houston. So an awful lot of things to get to here this morning. We'll do it next. This is the Equine Forum presented by Twinspires on HRRN.
Race the Twinspires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, Twinspires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. Twinspires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit twinspires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Airdrie Stud is proud to announce the arrival of Grade 1 winning millionaire Happy Saver for the 2023 season. Happy Saver boasts one of the most important female families of the century, as his third dam is Broodmare of the Year Weekend Surprise, dam of the legendary AP Indy. Undefeated in his first 5 starts, Happy Saver capped off his perfect 4-for-4 season with an emphatic victory in the historic Grade 1 Jockey Club Gold Cup.
And Happy Saver stays undefeated. He steps up and he wins the Grade 1 Jockey Club Gold Cup.
Airdrie Studs, Happy Saver. Think about it.
There's something for everyone this February at Laurel Park. Come watch live horse racing every Friday through Sunday and join us on Saturday, February 18th for the Winter Spectacular Stakes, featuring 6 stakes races and $900,000 in purses, including the Grade 3 General George and the Grade 3 Barbara Fritchie Stakes. Plus, don't miss out on special President's Day holiday racing on Monday, February 20th. Visit laurelpark.com for more info. That's laurelpark.com for more.
There's plenty of thrills at Gulfstream Park during the championship meet with live racing Wednesday through Sunday. Don't miss the Triple Crown prep races, including the Fountain of Youth Stakes on March 4th and the Florida Derby Saturday, April 1st. Enjoy the races outdoors from the Carousel Club, our Feast in 10 Palms, offering a premium view of the races. For stake schedules, reservations, tickets, and more, head to GulfstreamPark.com.
Adina Stallions set the gold standard, all number 1 in their category. Point of entry, the number 1 stallion by black type and greatest stakes winners standing in Canada.
Oh, the classy point of entry would not be denied.
Shaman Ghost, the number 1 second crop sire standing in Canada.
It's Shaman Ghost, an overwhelming force in the last 16th of a mile.
Signature Red, the number 1 stallion by percentage of black type winners standing in Canada.
Signature Red won his second Highlander in a row.
And Silent Name, the number 1 stallion by percentage of black type performers standing in Canada. A list that includes Grade 1 winner Silent Poet.
Silent Poet in front. Admiralty peer out the ground, but Silent Poet has won the Highlander Stakes.
And don't forget Adina's new sire, American Guru. His first crop are now yearlings of 2023. American Guru, the son of Unbridled Song, whose family have already set their gold standards around the world.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by Twinspires.
Stevens going to a vigorous left-handed whip, holding on by 2. Goodbye Halo is charging hard. Here comes Personal Ensign, unleashing a furious run on the outside, but it is still winning colors. Goodbye Halo. Personal Ensign, a 16th of a mile from the wire. Winning colors is there. Personal Ensign, a dramatic finish, and here is the wire, and it is Personal Ensign there with winning colors in a photo. Very close at the 16th pole. It looked like Personal Ensign was facing her first defeat, but in those final 110 courageous yards, she certainly proved herself a champion this afternoon.
Welcome back to the Equine Forum, presented by Twinspires here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. Tom Durkin with the call of one of the greatest races you'll ever see in the history of the sport of thoroughbred racing. Personal Ensign winning the 1988 Breeders' Cup Distaff at Churchill Downs when it looked impossible. Her jockey that day was the late Hall of Famer Randy Romero. And if any horse were to kind of sum up what it means to have courage and it means to never quit, it would be Personal Ensign. And that's certainly what Randy Romero represented in his life and everything he had to battle on the health front too. And this past week, jockey Vernon Bush was honored with a very special award, and it is the Randy Romero Pure Courage Award that represents Randy, and it honors the memory of the late Hall of Famer. Vernon now joins the late Miguel Mena and Marcelino Pedroza Jr. as winners of the Pure Courage Award, and he is very deserving, and he is kind enough to take a little time to be with me here this morning. Vernon, I really do appreciate the visit, and congratulations on that award, my friend.
Well, I thank you very, very much.
Vernon, as a fellow jockey, and I'm sure you knew Randy on some level, when you hear the name Randy Romero, what does that name mean to you?
Well, the name Randy Romero means nothing but courage, determination, and tenacity to win and never give up.
When you got the message that you were going to be receiving this Pure Courage Award, what was that like for you?
That was one of the most awesome moments in my life, other than my children being born. You know, to be able to win an award with Randy's name on it and be able to be listed, next to him was it's an achievement that I never ever thought I would get. It's one of the high points of my life.
How'd you receive the news?
Well, I was informed that I was nominated. And then the next thing I know, I got everybody getting a hold of me on Facebook telling me I was nominated. And then the man that was Randy's agent, Rick, notified me that, he did a little bio on me and said he would be getting back. And I guess nominations had closed on a Friday. Friday night, he called me up and said, "You win by a large margin." He said, "You have a lot of fans still out there that remember you when you were on top of your game." So that's how I was informed.
Yeah, 612 of the 785 votes were cast in your favor. So I'd call that a runaway, Vernon.
I'm very fortunate that I still have people remember me when I was on top of my game. And I hope, that I gave them nothing but enjoyment, because every time I go out there, still to this day, I give it 110%. I'm doing something that I've wanted to do ever since I was 3 years old, when I used to follow my father around getting on horses, and then I'd hang out in the jocks room while he rode at, it's a Turfway now, but it used to be called Latonia.
Yeah.
And River Downs, now it's Belterra, but, when he was riding in the late 60s, early 70s, and it's just something that I've wanted to do my whole life, and I'm very lucky to still be able to do it.
Did you ever have the opportunity to spend much time around Randy?
Yes. One fall, I rode with him at Keeneland in the Turfway, and then we went to Keeneland. We had the same valet, and I used to sit down and I would pick his brain, and just talk about races and then other things off the racetrack. But what I got from Randy was, he'd study a race, he'd look at it, and he would just, he was determined what he was going to do when he went out there, and knew how to do it, and I watched that, and I wasn't fortunate enough to ride horses like him, but, it was just an honor and a privilege to be able to be next to him in the jocks room.
And talking with Vernon Bush, who is the recipient of this year's Randy Romero Pure Courage Award, which remembers the late Hall of Famer and is given to somebody who in our sport represents tremendous courage. And Vernon has certainly done that. Vernon, you've overcome injuries. You've overcome battles with alcoholism, and you are now 100% sober, and that is a wonderful thing. So I'm assuming that because of all of those things combined in your life, and set aside the fact that you're a good person too, but all of those things you've had to overcome, that is the reason that you were given this award. Would you agree?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Totally.
Yeah.
2018, I was on a horse for Eric Reed at Belterra Park, and the horse flipped over with me, and I shattered my ankle. And along with that, I injured my hip. After 2 surgeries on my ankle, they operated on my hip, and they had to actually replace my hip because it was damaged that bad. And when I thought I was mended up to start getting on horses, after I got the okay, that lasted about a month. I was working a horse, and he fell with me, and I broke my femur. I got a plate and I think 12 screws in there, pipe clamps. And it was just a long road. And during that time, I went through a bout of depression, and I'd given up on myself, and I started drinking really heavily. And one day I said to myself, I got to pull myself out of this. If I'm ever going to do anything or and be a positive role model, I have to get myself together. And I worked on it. And coming up April 4th of this year will be 2 years of sobriety.
Wow. Tremendous.
Thank you.
Yeah, tremendous. Certainly not easy to do. And the things you just outlined, Vernon, kind of tie in with what's going to happen at racetracks across America on Saturday afternoon, where there will be a national moment of silence for jockey Avery Wisman, who died suddenly January 11th at the age of 23 following his prolonged struggles with the physical and the mental demands that are placed on riders day in and day out. You were able to overcome that and work through it. He wasn't as fortunate. Talk about some of those struggles that riders go through on a day-to-day basis.
For me, I've actually went through a bout of alopecia from the stress. I started losing my hair. All my facial hair fell out, and it's just, you want to give 110% every time you go out there, and you can't please everybody all the time. You have trainers upset at you. You have owners upset at you. One day you're a hero. Next day you're done. I try to explain it to people. Football players get 4 chances. They're millionaires to get a first down. Baseball players get actually 4 swings at the bat. Or 3 strikes. If you hit 300, you're going to the Hall of Fame. They're millionaires. Jockeys get 1 shot for $85, and you're either a hero or you're a loser. And going through that every day, knowing that you're doing something that you love to do, but you don't know if you're going to come home at night. It's very stressful. It plays a lot on you. And I mean, earlier in my career, I did have a bout with drug addiction, and then I got over that. And then I just started drinking, and it escalated, and I finally had to fight back from that. But I can only do it one day at a time, and I know everything's out there. And I've taken a lot of pressure off myself because of my age and knowing what is expected of me. I can only do what I have underneath me. I can only ride the horse as fast as he can run. And before, I used to come in the jockey room, throw my helmet, be mad at myself. And I had many riders sit me down and tell me, all you're doing is creating havoc for your next race. Let it go. And it took me a long time to do that, But this is a sport that it asks a lot of you. And you have to be prepared mentally and physically to go into it.
I'm talking with Vernon Bush. You mentioned your age, Vernon, 61 years old. You're a veteran in that jocks room now, and I can imagine that there are young riders that come to you for advice, and you can talk to them because you've been at the bottom, and now you've been able to overcome that. You can talk to them on a level that not many people can. So what advice do you give to young jockeys who are just starting to figure out that this game is very demanding for riders?
Well, I was explaining to one apprentice rider this morning, that you have to take care of yourself first. Your own mental health is everything. You cannot let when trainers yell at you or an owner yells at you or another rider yells at you, you have to just take it for what it is and let it go. You just and go on and get on the next horse, ride the next race, and just do the best you can. I was told a long time ago, and I didn't believe it, but this game will eat you up if you allow it. If you allow it to, it will destroy you. And you do have to have a thick skin because, there's people that, you get hurt, there's somebody going to fill your spot right away. And you have to realize that. And sometimes you're the recipient of that, and other times you're the one that they're filling the shoes.
Yeah.
And you just have to become thick-skinned and go on with yourself. And again, do the best you can.
Yeah, that's great advice to any young rider, any veteran rider, too, that may be struggling with those types of things. And Vernon Bush is set to receive the Randy Romero Pure Courage Award, at least tentatively at this point. The plans call for Vernon to receive that award March 26th at the Fairgrounds in New Orleans, and that's going to be a very special day. Vernon, you've already started putting some plans together as to who you're going to invite to have with you that day.
Well, my daughter is coming with me. I invited my son. He's up in Salem, New Hampshire, but he just started a new job, and he cannot make it. My daughter's mother is my ex-wife is also wanting to come out there.
Wow.
And she is very proud of me because, we split up a long time ago because of the issues I had a long time ago. And she told me how proud she is of me. And my daughter, she actually told me that I was her best friend now, so I can give her advice on where I went wrong when I was younger. But, I'm going to have my family almost with me. I wish my brother and my sister could be there, but they have other obligations to do. My brother's a trainer up at Turfway Park, and my sister lives up in northern Kentucky in Alexandria and works for the county. So,
yeah. Did I read, too, where you might have a little muscle there with you, too? Maybe a professional wrestler when you receive the award?
Yeah, that is my son, and I wished he could make it.
Okay.
It's not official yet that he cannot. But, yes, he is a professional wrestler up in New England, yes.
Wow. What a day that's going to be, Vernon. And I read where maybe you might even get a mount that day, ride a race, and then get to enjoy the rest of the day. But it would be wonderful to see you in the saddle on March 26th, and it's wonderful to see you in the saddle every time you're out there. And, Vernon, I can't thank you enough for spending a little time with me this morning to share your story and to talk about that Randy Romero Pure Courage Award. It is certainly well-deserved, and I want to wish you all the best moving forward, my friend.
Thank you very much, and it's been a pleasure to be on the show with you.
Yeah, it really has been my pleasure. That's Vernon Bush, and again, that award's set to be given out tentatively right now, March 26th at the Fairgrounds, and nobody more deserving when you hear him tell that story and everything that Vernon has had to overcome personally and professionally in his life. And now here he is, 61 years old, and still competing, still working horses in the morning, and still loving what he does. So congratulations to Vernon Bush. All right, when I come back, we'll turn our attention back to the big races coming up at the Fairgrounds. We'll look ahead to this week's Unsung Hero and get you ready for Calling All 3-Year-Olds presented by Spendthrift. But that all comes your way right after this week's edition of the Legends of the Turf.
In early October of 1920, amidst full pastel resplendence of early fall, some 30,000 racing fans gathered at Kenilworth Park in suburban Toronto, Canada, in eager anticipation of the much ballyhooed match race between Sam Riddle's Titan of the Turf, Man o' War, and the 1919 Triple Crown winner, the first ever, by the way, Sir Barton. Man o' War was regarded as virtually invincible in many racing quarters and was an overwhelming favorite amongst those in attendance to defeat Colonel Ross's superb 4-year-old. The distance was 1 1/4 miles, the purse $75,000 plus a $5,000 gold cup. There had been a modicum of controversy generated among racing fans when Earl Sandy, the regular pilot aboard Sir Barton, was replaced for this particular race by Jack Keogh. Commander Ross, the horse's owner, felt Sandy was not riding in top form at that time. The rider aboard the immortal Big Red was his customary reinsman, Clarence Cummer. As a matter of fact, Colonel Ross had first call on Cummer's services, but he deferred to Cummer's wishes in allowing him to ride Riddle's horse. Colonel Ross said, quote, "My action is taken without any prejudice to Sandy, and I am only exercising my right as owner of Sir Barton." The two horses answered the call to post and paraded before the stands looking absolutely fit on their way to the gate. Man o' War looked about nonchalantly as though this were an ordinary occurrence. Henry Morrissey was the starter, and he waited until both champions were perfectly ready. Then he sent them on their way as the webbing flew up, and to the huge roar of the vast throng, the race that was billed as, quote, the race of the century was indeed underway. Sir Barton was well away, and he took the lead for the first 16th, but that was all. Man o' War was quickly given his head by Cummer, and he shot by Sir Barton to establish a clear lead as he went the first quarter in a rapid 22 3. It was Man o' War by 2 open lengths and still somewhat in reserve by Cummer as they hit the half in 46 2, 3 quarters in 111 2. Keogh rapped Sir Barton a couple of times with a stick, but could get no more out of him as Man o' War coasted into and on around the turn, coasting while galloping freely with those long, smooth strides for which he had been well noted. By the time they hit the top of the stretch, Man o' War had opened up to a 3-length advantage after clocking a mile in 137 4. Cummer glanced back at his rival, who was struggling valiantly while fully extended but not closing a single inch of ground. Man o' War was just breezing along in synchronized motion and continued to increase his margin, cruising to the wire a winner in smashing fashion by an open 7 lengths. The final time was 2:03 flat, and Cummer later said, quote, "It was about as easy a score as Man o' War had ever chalked up. It was the lope for the last quarter. Had he wanted to, he could easily have gone a couple of seconds faster. It was far faster than I expected, and I knew Sir Barton had no business with Man o' War after we had gone the first quarter," end of quote. But Sam Riddle was his customary modest self after the winning effort of his stalwart, and Commander Ross, the losing owner, was among the very first to offer his congratulations. It all happened on a resplendent fall day in a beautiful setting at Kenilworth Park in suburban Toronto, Canada, October of 1920. A truly great moment in thoroughbred racing.
Race the Twinspires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, Twinspires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. Twinspires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit twinspires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Woodford Feed, where tradition merges with technology. Family owned since 1940 and providing exceptional customer service, Woodford Feed specializes in the highest quality feed, using only the finest ingredients to ensure optimal nutrition for your horses. In addition, Woodford Feed can help with all your farm needs, including field seed, fertilizer, and weed control. So whether your horse is sprinting around the racetrack or has a foal by her side, count on Woodford Feed to provide the quality nutrition necessary to perform at the highest level. Woodford Feed for Sales, Kentucky.
Sam Houston's live thoroughbred meet runs through April 8th and features a new afternoon racing schedule for 2023 with racing Friday through Sunday and a first post at 1 p.m. Central. The meet is highlighted by the Houston Racing Festival on Saturday, January 28th, Texas Preview Day on February 18th, and Texas Champions Day March 25th. Canadian racing fans are invited to play Sam Houston at simulcast outlets throughout Canada and on HPI Bet. For more information, visit shrp.com.
New to Coolmore America for 2023 is Jack Kristufek. A son of top sire Munnings and a 3-time Grade 1 winner, Jack Kristufek was an 8 3/4 length winner on debut at Saratoga at 2 before winning the Grade 1 Champagne with a whopping 102 Beyer. His 3-year-old campaign included wins in the Grade 2 Pat Day Mile, the Grade 1 Woody Stevens by 10 lengths, and the Grade 1 H. Allen Jerkins. Jack Kristufek stands at an introductory fee of $45,000. Call the team at Ashford today to book your mare before he fills up.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by Twinspires.
As they come to the top of the stretch, Al loves Josie's, followed by Karen's Notion, always in a hurry. He's got a rally for the back of the pack, and they're followed the back there by Savoy on the inside, and into the stretch now, and Factor It In is taking the lead. Dernier Token on the inside, 5 Dreams battles along but drops back, and then Al loves Josie. The others all for a minor share. Now it's Factor It In. Look at how sharp Factor It is in again today. Angel Cruz and Factor It In. They're just going to bullet home and open up 3 at the end as Yoli Hey-Hoo rallies for second, and 5 Dreams always in a hurry, Savoy.
The voice of Maryland Racing, Dave Rodman, with a fun call there. That was the fire plug at Laurel on January 21st. It was won by Factor It In, who returns today in the General George, looking for his first graded stakes victory. He's been close on a couple of occasions, but has yet to be able to seal the deal, if you will. We're going to find out later today in the 9th race at Laurel. That's 4:32 Eastern, the Grade 3 General George, if Factor It In can add a graded stakes victory to his resume. He breaks from the outside post in the 8-horse field. He's the 5-2 morning line favorite. He should be able to be positioned anywhere that they want him to be from the outside post, assuming he breaks well. But even if he doesn't, he should have time to recover and sit just off the pace. We'll see. What a powerful visit with Vernon Bush in that first segment, wasn't it? Getting a chance to hear him talk very candidly and openly about his struggles with alcoholism, his struggles with injuries, which is something all jockeys deal with, but then talking about some of the mental health issues that jockeys have to deal with on an almost daily basis, or at least throughout much of their careers. So I thought that was really insightful, and my thanks to Vernon for taking time in that previous segment. Every Friday here on the network, from 6 to 7 Eastern, we bring you the Weekend Stakes Preview Show. Bobby Neuman, Dave Friedman spend time looking ahead to the stakes races coming up on any given weekend. And you can go back and listen to the whole show on our website right now, horseracingradio.net. Well, wait until after this show ends at 11 o'clock Eastern, and then head over to our website and check out the podcast, and do it on every major podcast platform as well. But as part of the show yesterday, Bobby and Dave took time to preview the aforementioned Grade 3 General George and the Grade 3 Barbara Fritchie, which are both part of a tremendous card at Laurel today. And here's what they had to say about those 2 graded stakes.
So they've got a big card tomorrow at Laurel as well, including 2 graded stakes, the first of which is the $250,000 Grade 3 Barbara Fritchie. These are fillies and mares sprinting 7 furlongs on the main track. Field of 8 going to go to post in this race, Dave. And the ones who look like the top contenders in the field have kind of been taking them turns, run again, beating one another. Favorite on the morning line is number 8, Fille d'Esprit, who's won 3 of her last 4.
Yeah, and I mean, she loves Laurel. She has 12 wins and 19 starts at Laurel. The 7 furlong distance fits her well. She's 3 for 6 at the distance, and she's completely reasonable in every way, shape, or form. I like a couple of horses that are coming outside of Maryland to run against a lot of these horses that are stabled at Laurel. I like Past the Champagne for George Weaver. Second off, a layoff, I thought ran a very credible race in a stakes race at Tampa last time out, and Union Lake for John Terranova, coming off a win in an optional claiming event, had run against some much better horses at Keeneland and Saratoga, and really wasn't bad in the race at Saratoga in September. I ended up on Past the Champagne. I just thought if it wasn't for the fact that this horse has had difficulty staying on the track, I kind of have always liked this one. And I think that the upside is very, very high. I mean, this is a horse that ran ahead behind Malafat in the Ashland back in 2021. I expect a good one. The problem with Pass the Champagne has been we just don't see her very often. Well, she's second off a layoff here. I think we're going to see an excellent effort, and I expect her to win.
All right, so 3-1 on Pass the Champagne for Dave. I'm getting chalky with number 8, Fille d'Esprit, simply because it looks like to me when she runs her race, somebody else is going to have to run better than they usually do to beat her. She loves it there at Laurel. Wow, 12 wins from 19 career tries on the main track at Laurel, and she's also run well at the 7 furlong distance. I like the cozy outside post. Not too creative here. I'm going with the favorite Fille d'Esprit. Dave going with number 3, Pass the Champagne in the Grade 3 Barbara Fritchie. 9th race tomorrow at Laurel is the Grade 3 General George. $250,000 on the line. This time the boy is going to go 7 furlongs on the main track. Field of 8 as well in this race. Morning line favorite, once again drawn outside. It's number 8, Factor It In.
Yeah, and I think Factor It In is one of them. This is a race that I think 4 horses are going to get play. Factor It In, Eastern Bay, Pirate Rick, and Baron. And while my play in here is not necessarily a strong one on one of those individual horses, it's against one of them. I don't like Eastern Bay. I think Eastern Bay is a horse that doesn't fit with this group all that well because of the distance, Bobby. 7 furlongs has not been what Eastern Bay does well. Yes, there are some okay 7 furlong heats, but those races are at Parks and at Charlestown, and I don't trust them. I think against a better quality of horse here, this is a horse that would be better off at a different distance. Now, Eastern Bay absolutely loves Laurel Park, 12 wins and 34 starts, but I'm playing against that one. So then the question is, who are you on? And I had difficulty with kind of picking between the others. Pirate Rick, number 6. I don't know that this one wants 7 furlongs either. Looks like a horse that wants the front and is going to try to lap him. And the one try going the extra furlong did not go particularly well against kind of generally this level of competition. Last time out at Aqueduct was the 7-5 favorite and faded very badly. So to me, it goes between Baron and Factor It In, and they've been horses that have run against each other. They ran against each other December 30th at Laurel. Factor It In won that day by about a length and a quarter. Baron was the favorite that day. Baron had some pretty significant trouble in that race and then came back and won at Parks at the end of January. Factor It In came back and won too. I'm going to use both of them. I'm picking Baron, but Baron and Factor It In are the two I'm going to lean on.
Okay, I went to number 8, Factor It In, similar to reason that I went with horse earlier today when talking about the mine shaft, in that I like that Factor It In can adapt to whatever the pace scenario is. He's won in wire-to-wire fashion going 6 furlongs, but most of the time he's able to pass runners. He came from 2.5 lengths back last time out in the fire plug to win. Earlier this year, or rather last year in a race at Laurel, he came from 8 lengths back in a race to win, or at least 6 lengths back in a race to win. So it doesn't really matter what the pace scenario is for Factor It In. He adapts, and from that outside post, I think he'll have a lot of options. 5-2 on the morning line. I don't know if we're going to get 5-2 since he was 3-5 when he beat a similar field last time out. But if you got 5-2, I would say that would be the place I would go in the Grade 3 General George Race 9 tomorrow at Laurel.
All right, that's yesterday's Weekend Stakes preview show, which is now posted as a podcast on our website and on Apple Podcast and every major podcast platform. Bobby and Dave walk through not just those races. They walk through all of the big races coming up later today, and that includes the Risen Star, the Rachel Alexandra, the Mine Shaft, the Fairground Stakes, in New Orleans. It also includes the Royal Delta Stakes down at Gulfstream Park. So head over there after we finish up here at 11 a.m. and listen to that show before you go betting any of those races today. Their insight is really, really top-notch. So my thanks to Bobby and Dave for that particular segment and, of course, for that show in general each and every Friday. When I come back, it's time for this week's edition of Calling All 3-Year-Olds presented by Spendthrift, and I'll tell you what's ahead in hour number 2. This is the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network.
Did you receive a call or message that mentioned Social Security and demanded immediate action? Did the caller know your Social Security number or other personal information and tell you that your Social Security number had been used in connection with the crime? Did you feel worried that your Social Security number might be suspended, your bank account might be frozen or seized, or you could be arrested? That is not the Social Security Administration. Social Security will not threaten you, demand your personal information, or instant payment, email or text you pictures or documents, or use a real government official's name to gain your trust. Social Security does not accept payments by gift card, prepaid debit card, internet currency, or by mailing cash. Criminals use these forms of payment because they are hard to trace. Do not be fooled. Hang up. Ignore them. Report this criminal activity to the Social Security Administration Office of the Inspector General at oig.ssa.gov.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
James Brown and Bill Cowher welcoming you back to Dennis Melvin's house. It's time for the Midnight Snack Run.
This is one tricky obstacle course. Sticking to healthy habits in this kitchen is going to take focus and determination, but it can be done, JB.
He's already entered the snack part of the course, and he's eyeballing a jar of chocolatey candy.
That is tempting right off the start.
Uh-oh, he's reaching, Bill, but he pushes it away.
Great stiff arm.
He's approaching a plate of delicious-looking iced cookies.
Oh, Dennis, you only want one of those.
He blows right by him for the apple.
Oh, the fridge. It's make or break time, JB.
He stares down some rich-looking treats. Uh-oh, looks like he's headed for the soda. Wait, he jukes left, grabs the water bottle, and shuts the door with his elbow in record time.
Unbelievable move. I gotta see that again.
And he's out. He even turned off the light.
That's the way you execute a midnight snack run.
Stand Up to Cancer and Rally want you to reduce your risk for cancer.
Go to takeahealthystand.org.
And now an important message from Jerry Rice.
As a career wide receiver, I've been hit hard. But no training nor practice prepared us for the devastation of COVID-19. Thankfully, there is hope. Even with multiple vaccines available, we still have to work together until everyone is safe. We all win when we unite to prevent.
For more information, visit unitetoprevent.org.
Hi, this is jockey Brian Hernandez. For me, there's no bigger thrill than crossing the finish line in front, and nobody captures the excitement of our sport like Horse Racing Radio Network. Each week, HRRN brings you exclusive talk shows, podcasts, and in-depth conversations with the biggest names in racing, jockeys, trainers, owners, and more. Plus, HRRN is committed to helping disabled riders through their support of the PDJF. So climb aboard a winner today by visiting horseracingradio.net.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by Twinspires.
They're all in line. And they're off.
Spendthrift Farm presents Calling All 3-Year-Olds with Bobby Neuman.
The 1-week delayed running of the Grade 3 Withers took top billing for 3-year-olds last weekend at Aqueduct, and bettors had it a match race between Arctic Arrogance and Hit Show. The former took the early lead and set an honest pace, with the latter sitting mid-pack. Then Hit Show made his move around the far turn, overtook the leader near the quarter pole, and drew away to win by over 5 lengths. Final time for the 9 furlongs was 1:54.3, and the winner got 20 Kentucky Derby points for the victory. At Tampa Bay Downs, WNL was sent off the mild favorite in the Grade 3 Sam F. Davis, but he had a poor trip and was never really a factor. The big story was the Todd Pletcher-trained Litigate. After taking a lot of action at the windows and being sent off at 5-2, he stalked the early pace while racing in the clear before ultimately running by them all en route to a clear win. Golden Gate's feature Saturday was the El Camino Real Derby. Ed Moger's locally based Chase the Chaos closed from well off the pace to win going away. With the win, Chase the Chaos earned 10 Derby points and an automatic berth into this year's Preakness Stakes. Points go up starting today with the Grade 2 Risen Star at Fairgrounds. 100 points available in total, with 50 going to the winner. That means this race is basically a win and you're in qualifier for the Kentucky Derby. A capacity field of 14 was entered for the mile and an eighth test, including stakes winners Victory Formation, Private Creed, Two Fills, and Curly Jack. We also find Harlow Cap, who's the first of the transfers from trainer Bob Baffert. He made the move to Steve Asmussen's control within this past week, which means he's now eligible to earn Kentucky Derby points and possibly run for the Roses on May 7th. Finally, the weekend 3-year-old action closes tomorrow with the Hyacinth Stakes in Tokyo. The winner gets 30 Derby points. Next week, we'll focus on the Grade 2 Rebel Stakes at Oaklawn. I'll be back with this week's top 5 list right after this word from Spendthrift.
Spendthrift Farm introduces new for 2023 Classic winner Mo Donegal. A leading 2-year-old of his class, Mo Donegal won the Grade 2 Remsen Stakes to close out his juvenile campaign before going on to win the Grade 2 Wood Memorial and Grade 1 Belmont Stakes as a 3-year-old, joining Nyquist as Classic winners by Uncle Mo.
And it will be Mo Donegal to win the Test of the Champion, the Belmont Stakes.
Mo Donegal became the first horse this century to capture New York's prestigious Remsen at 2 and Wood Memorial at 3. Mo Donegal, the newest Classic winner, standing at Spendthrift.
This week's top 5 list of Derby contenders looks like this. Number 5, Instant Coffee, looked great winning his last couple starts with an exciting closing kick. Number 4, Giant Mischief, the son of Into Mischief, should improve as the distances increase, pointing for the Rebel at Oaklawn next weekend. Number 3, Forte, the Breeders' Cup champ, is back in training. His next start likely the Fountain of Youth at Gulfstream on March 4th. Number 2, Hejazi, high-priced Baffert trainee, broke through with a fast maiden win. He may be improving at the right time. And number 1, Arabian Night, the undefeated Baffert trainee, isn't eligible for Derby points yet, but certainly one of the ones off his impressive first 2 starts. That's your Calling All 3-Year-Olds segment presented by Spendthrift, the Breeders' Farm.
And that road to the Kentucky Derby edging ever closer. 77 days, 8 hours, 48 minutes, and 49 seconds away. That's Saturday, May 6th at Churchill Downs. We'll see how many of those horses Bobby just previewed will make it to the starting gate on that first Saturday in May. And speaking of the Kentucky Derby, guys, how about a shout-out for the 2-time Kentucky Derby winner and Hall of Famer Nick Zito, who has been in a drought that he probably never could have imagined, and certainly many people in the sport could never imagine. Yesterday, when Pout crossed the finish line first for Nick, that ended a winless streak of 119 races for Nick Zito. Seems impossible, right? His last winner was July of 2021. That streak has come to an end, and hopefully it's one of those things where, like a hitter in baseball, when you're in a slump and you finally break through, all of a sudden the hits start coming easier and things start turning around. Let's hope that's the case for Nick Zito. NPZ back in the winner's circle yesterday. Congratulations, Nick. Very, very well deserved. Update you on the poll question here this morning. I took the same approach as I did last weekend with Wonder Wheel, but I'm expecting that this question here today is going to be completely different than what we saw with Wonder Wheel a week ago. Is Hoosier Philly the best 3-year-old of any gender racing today? And apparently, I'm wrong, because the results aren't much different than what we saw a week ago. Gave you 2 choices, absolutely or no way. And I really thought this was going to be tighter. 72% of you responding with no way. She is not the best. So that begs the question, who is the best 3-year-old racing today? Is it a horse that's in the Risen Star? Is it a horse that's in an allowance race? Maybe not at Fairgrounds. Maybe it is at Fairgrounds. Maybe Gulfstream. A horse that we might see in a Derby prep next time out that's not in the Risen Star today. Is it somebody in the Risen Star? Let me know your thoughts there. You can email the show, mike@horseracingradio.net, or you can hit me up on social media at HRRN on Twitter and Horse Racing Radio Network on Facebook. If it's not Hoosier Philly, Who is the best 3-year-old racing today? I'm a little shocked that 72% of you are saying no way. Going to talk with Kevin Kirstein about that coming up at 9 o'clock Eastern, just a couple of minutes away. He'll preview the entire Derby picture, and he'll talk about Hoosier Philly, and he'll talk about the Risen Star. Kevin is the publicity manager at Churchill Downs. He's at the fairgrounds today, so he'll join us live from the fairgrounds momentarily. Trish in Colorado writes in and says, I just don't know where she fits, referring to Hoosier Philly, because she didn't run in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. The intent was not to run her in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. The intent was to run Hoosier Philly against the boys. They entered her into the Breeders' Cup Juvenile off of just a maiden win. Completely unconventional. You're going to hear Tom Amos talk about that later in the show. She didn't draw in. She was on the outside looking in. So they went to their backup plan at Churchill Downs. She wins. And she's been perfect through all 3 starts. James sends a note about the Vernon Bush conversation that I had earlier in this first hour, and it kind of took me back to the days before I even moved to Kentucky. And I was going to racetracks like Suffolk Downs and Rockingham Park in New Hampshire, which, by the way, one of the great jewels of thoroughbred racing, Rockingham Park. That was, for those of you who have been there, you know what I'm talking about. It was a special, special place. I loved Rockingham. And James chimes in and writes into us and says he was part of a great riding colony was Vernon Bush. You had Carl Gambardella, Joe Hampshire, Diane Nelson, Rudy Baez, Tammy Piermarini. Great names. That's a great take there, James. Appreciate the note. Again, if you don't do social media and you want to weigh in on the poll question, or you want to let me know which horse you feel is the best 3-year-old racing today, you can do it by emailing the show, mike@horseracingradio.net. All right, hour 2 comes your way in just a couple of seconds, right after I pause 10 seconds for station identification and bring you your Visit Barbados racing update. This is the Horse Racing Radio Network.
The road to the Kentucky Oaks and Kentucky Derby stops in the Bayou this weekend with today's Grade 2 Rachel Alexandra and Grade 2 Risen Star Stakes, both offering the winner 50 points toward a spot in the starting gate at Churchill Downs in early May. Undefeated Hoosier Philly makes her highly anticipated 3-year-old debut in the Rachel Alexandra, with her trainer Tom Amos seeking a 4th in that event. In the Risen Star, the spotlight shines on a trio of runners trained by Brad Cox and 3 from the barn of Hall of Fame trainer Steve Asmussen. A full field of 14 will look to take a big step toward the Twinspires on the first Saturday in May. Around the country, Sam Houston showcases 5 stakes races as part of their Texas Preview Day. Laurel Park hosts renewal of the Grade 3 Barbara Fritchie and the Grade 3 General George. And Gulfstream pays tribute to the Great Royal Delta with the Grade 3 Royal Delta Stakes. And that's your Visit Barbados racing update, brought to you by Barbados Tourism. Learn more at visitbarbados.org.
If you've been waiting to discover that sweet spot where peace of mind meets the time of your life, then it sounds like you've been waiting on Barbados. You've been waiting to experience a meal that makes you book a flight to have it again. You've been waiting for adventure in the sun, from the majesty of horse racing and polo to the thrill of surfing our playful waves. From the moment you set foot on the island, you'll realize Barbados is exactly what you've been waiting for. Visit jetblue.com/Barbados for special vacation packages.
This is the Equine Forum, presented by Twinspires.
Welcome back. Hour 2 of the Equine Forum, presented by Twinspires. Rolling on, a very busy morning here. Got a chance to catch up with Vernon Bush. Very powerful, candid interview in the first segment of the program today. Bobby and Dave, Bobby Neuman, Dave Friedman, previewed the 2 greatest stakes taking place at Laurel later this afternoon, the General George and the Barbara Fritchie. And now we dive headlong into the second hour of the show. Going to kick it off with Kevin Kirstein momentarily. He will talk about the 3-year-old division. He will also talk about today's Risen Star and about Hoosier Philly going in the Rachel Alexandra. Unsung Heroes comes your way at 9:20. I'm going to welcome Ricky Ducaran, who is a longtime groom at Woodbine. He's going to tell his pretty remarkable story about going to Woodbine for the first time as a young man, looking for some direction in his life, had never been to a horse track before, and he winds up working in the barns, loving the sport of thoroughbred racing, and that's all he's done. He's done this for the rest of his life. And it's a great story. He is this week's Unsung Hero at 9:20. 9:40, Frank Hoff, the assistant general manager at Sam Houston, going to be with me to talk about Texas Preview Day and to talk about the situation now with simulcasting returning to the Lone Star State, which is welcome news to all the horsemen there. 10 o'clock Eastern is the Twinspires Triple Play with Joe Kristufek. Kurt Becker takes you on a weekly stroll through racing history at 10:20, and at 10:30, Dale Romans, Tim Wilkin will both be here for this week's edition of I Ask, They Answer. Huge day at the fairgrounds today. Several great stakes, including the Rachel Alexandra for the 3-year-old fillies and the Risen Star for the 3-year-old boys. The first 50 points race in the series leading up to the Kentucky Derby. And Kevin Kirstein is the publicity manager for Churchill Downs. He is at the fairgrounds this morning, and he's with me now here on HRRN. Kevin, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. Happy Championship Series kickoff on the road to the Derby in the Oaks.
Yeah, Louisiana Derby Preview Day, right?
Yeah, Louisiana Derby Preview Day. Great card here at Fairgrounds. 13 races overall. Gets kicked off at 1 o'clock Eastern time. It's a fun day of racing here in the Big Easy. A lot going on, too, in New Orleans, being Mardi Gras. So it's a lot going on in the city, but the action is here at Fairgrounds today.
Okay, so have you spent more time at the track or more time on Bourbon Street?
You know, I didn't hit Bourbon Street. We did end up on the town last night, and but, you know, I'm here. I'm in Joe Kristufek's office right now up in the press box. All is well.
Yeah, all is well. It's a wonderful day of racing. Let's start with the weather conditions. What's it like at the fairgrounds today?
You know, it's pretty chilly out there. The temperatures, you know, wind chills are about 40 degrees, and it's going to go up to about maybe the low 50s today. Sunny skies, not a cloud in the sky, so fast and firm conditions likely today. So should be a great day for racing, and just a little bit chilly wearing the jacket, but all is well.
Plenty of star power, too. The Risen Star, I think most people would agree, this is the deepest and probably the strongest Derby prep we've seen to date. And then you have Hoosier Philly, the undefeated superstar from the Tom Amos barn in the Rachel Alexandra Stakes. And I'm going to ask you this question, Kevin, because this was the poll question this morning, and I'll be honest, I'm a little shocked by the results. Is Hoosier Philly the best 3-year-old of any gender racing today? Absolutely or no way? What do you think?
Wow, that's a great question for the poll. I think out of any gender today, you know, I think she is. I think the Risen Star field is very competitive. I don't know if the Derby winner is in the Risen Star. I think there's a lot of very nice 3-year-olds that are in there. But overall, today racing, I think that she's the best one.
Interesting. I thought that this voting would be a bit closer than what it is. 74% of HRN Nation responding and saying, no way. She is absolutely not the best 3-year-old of any gender racing today. And with everything that she brings to the table, I thought that there would be more people like yourself in her corner.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, it was surprising to me last week when we closed the fourth pool of the Kentucky Derby Future Wager of how much action she took. We knew that she would take action. And, you know, the committee, we decided that, you know, let's make her an individual interest instead of using the all 3-year-old filly category, which we did for the first 3 pools. And she closed at 11-1 odds. And so she took a ton of action. And and I think rightfully so. But the buzz is there with her. I just think she's incredibly talented, and I can't wait to see what she brings to the table this afternoon.
Okay, considering the fact that Hoosier Philly was an option for bettors in that Derby pool last weekend, does that indicate that they're thinking first Saturday in May and a shot against the boys as opposed to the first Friday in May?
You know, it's interesting. You know, when I first talked to Tom Amos about this, it was when he was unsaddling her after she won the Goldenrod. He said, we need to make her an interest in the next Derby Future Wager. I said, absolutely, we'll do it. And so he had it in his mind back then. And, you know, talking through some of his interviews this winter, he's playing it pretty coy, which is, likely because, he doesn't want to, think too far ahead. But we made her an individual nominee because she was nominated in the early Louisiana Derby nominations. And so they nominated for the Louisiana Derby fairly early in the wintertime. And so she was made eligible to run in the Louisiana Derby. And so that's why we made her an individual interest, just knowing that, if she would run well today, she's eligible for that race.
Yeah, all other 3-year-olds closed as the 2-1 favorite. Then you had the juvenile champion Forte, who we're still awaiting his 3-year-old debut in the Fountain of Youth. He was the individual favorite at 8-1, and then Hoosier Philly at 11-1, Tappet Trice at 15-1, then Instant Coffee for Brad Cox at 22-1. So give me your overview of the top 3-year-old Derby prospects as it sits on February 18th.
It's interesting looking at this time of the year, Mike, because, we have the big question mark with Forte, who has not returned yet to make his 3-year-old debut. And so I think once he returns, I think that's going to make it a lot clearer of a picture, just how talented he is. He's obviously the champion, multiple Grade 1 winner. Just how does he stack up against this current Derby picture? You always look at the prep races that we see in, December and into January that conclude the prep season as, maybe they're the horses that are in the right form at the right time, maybe not the biggest Derby prospects. And so now we are starting to see the real 3-year-old picture take place where the 2-year-olds that ran well in the fall that sort of took 2 months off or took 6 weeks off to get their legs back underneath them to now be returning to the races. And so a horse like Forte is very intriguing to a lot of people. Of course, we know Arabian Night and his story of what he did when he went to Oaklawn and how impressive he has been. So there's some really good horses at the top right now. I think there's some horses that are sorting themselves out. We're going to see a lot of it today at the Risen Star because, a full field of 14 in here. And, I can look on paper, and I think 10 of the 14 could win this race. So there's going to be a lot of sorting out today to kick off the championship series.
Yeah, Victory Formation is the morning line favorite in that race today, but he drew a very difficult post. He's in post 13 in the 14-horse field. And one of the questions I'm going to bring up with Dale and Tim in the final segment of the show, I ask, they answer. I'm going to ask them if Victory Formation can overcome that post today and he wins this race, is he then the horse to beat for the Kentucky Derby? What would you say to that?
That's a big statement. I think he definitely turns into one, if not the favorite. You still have Forte at Arabian Night, but, if he's able to do that and win impressively, I think that puts him right up there with those two.
Yeah, Arabian Night's still looking for Kentucky Derby points because, of course, he's trained by Bob Baffert. They're going to have to make a decision there and move him by the end of the month if he wants to earn Derby points. So he is not among the choices for the betting interests in this year's field. Maybe that's why all other 3-year-olds was getting so much respect.
Yeah, that's sort of the things. It lumps in all the horses that have been eligible to garner points to get some betting interest. And quite frankly, I was surprised that it was as high of odds as it was. I thought it was going to get bet even more than the 2-1 that it closed at in the last pool.
Talking with Kevin Kirstein. He is the publicity manager at Churchill Downs. He's at the fairgrounds today for that huge day of racing, including the Risen Star and the Rachel Alexandra for the 3-year-olds. But you got the other greatest stakes, too, which are rock solid. And I know you're going to have your eye on several horses there today, but let's stick with the 3-year-olds. So the top 3-year-olds, in your opinion, right now, Kevin, as you would rank them, who would be your top 3 or 4?
I think Forte and Arabian Night definitely are in the picture. I think if Victory Formation does overcome this outside post, I think he's very talented for the Brad Cox barn. And I also think that Instant Coffee is really coming into picture of being one of the top 3-year-olds that'll end up on the first Saturday in May. And I didn't think so at first when he ran in the Kentucky Jockey Club. I wasn't necessarily certain how strong of a race that was. And so he grinded the entire way in the stretch in that Kentucky Jockey Club. But when he returned down here at Fairgrounds in North Comp, he just sort of showed that he was able to show some more speed and be up into the race more. And I think he's going in the right direction, and the Brad Cox camp have, planned to lay him off after that race. He's been training here in the mornings at Fairgrounds, and I think he's going to work either this morning or tomorrow, and so he's going to prep for the Louisiana Derby and then have that lone prep leading into the Kentucky Derby. But I think he's going in the right direction. He can be a very key player leading up to the first Saturday in May.
Post time for the Risen Star. It's race 13. That's the final race on the card today at Fairgrounds. 7:14 Eastern, 6:14 local time, Central Time in New Orleans. The race before it is the Rachel Alexandra, and that's the one with Hoosier Philly. She is the morning line favorite. Chop Chop, second choice at 8-5. I have my eyes on a bit of an upset here. And as good as Hoosier Philly has been, this is not the ultimate goal. It's not for any of these fillies, certainly. They want to peak on the first Friday in May. Pretty Mischievous is a horse that I find very interesting from the Brendan Walsh barn. She has tactical speed. She has run really, really good. Her only blemish coming at the hands of Hoosier Philly, who beat her in the Grade 2 Goldenrod. Other than that, she's been perfect. Is she capable of turning the tables on Hoosier Philly today?
I loved the way that she's always prepared at Churchill leading into her debut. She's been a horse that I think was always well thought of from the Walsh camp, and I'm willing to forgive that first two-turn effort in the Goldenrod. I think she can go in the right direction from there. She ran well in the Untappable Stakes last time out, so she's on the right path to doing well this afternoon. And the price will be right on her too. She's 9-2 on the line. I think she's gonna definitely add some value into that race because a lot of attention's going to go on Hoosier Philly.
Do you think she wins that race, or am I grasping at straws? Is Hoosier Philly just too good?
I think from a betting perspective, I think she's, if you're looking at value versus Hoosier Philly, I think she can win this race if, Hoosier Philly is not quite 100%, even though, this isn't the goal. And I think the mindset is right. I think from a gambling perspective, if you're loading up your Twinspires account, I think there's some value on her to definitely play her in the race. As I'm looking down the road, Mike, at Tom Amos, and I don't think he heard me saying that she's got some value. So that's good. He's just down the road here in front of the racing office at Fairgrounds. I don't think he heard me, but I do think that Pretty Mischievous is a very, very talented filly.
Yeah, a really cool story there, too. We'll see if she can find a way to get past Hoosier Philly. It's a great rematch. Two fillies I think you're going to hear a lot from, certainly down the road. And maybe Hoosier Philly, you hear from her on the first Saturday in May instead of Friday. Who knows? That's kind of a cool little angle to keep an eye on as we make our way down the road to the Kentucky Derby. Kevin, I know I didn't tell you I was going to ask you about any of the other races. We were just going to talk about the 3-year-old divisions with the fillies and the colts. But are there any other horses later today at the Fairgrounds you're going to have your eye on that you think could run really, really well?
I'm very intrigued about the comeback of Tiz the Bomb, who runs in the Fairground Stakes in race number 11. I think, he's, from all accounts down here at Fairgrounds, doing very well in the morning training for the Ken McPeak barn. And, I thought he was always a horse that, maybe just needed a little bit of a mental break after a very hard campaign last year. So his first start at 4. I'm very intrigued to see how he is coming back for his 4-year-old campaign today.
Well, Kevin Kirstein, there you have it, the publicity manager at Churchill. He'll be back at Churchill Downs after this, and he'll be very busy getting ready for that Kentucky Derby, which, in case you're wondering, let me go ahead and throw a countdown out there because it's what I do. 77 days, 8 hours, 27 minutes, and 40 seconds until the Run for the Roses, brother.
But it's only 70 days until opening night of the spring meet at Churchill. That's the count that we like to keep here at the office.
Yeah, that's right. It's bad enough to have to worry about the Kentucky Derby. You've got to worry about the week before, too.
Yeah, we kick off with opening nights of spectacular week of racing. But, we do the backup of 7 days from the 77.
Well, enjoy every minute of this great day of racing at the Fairgrounds. I appreciate the conversation, as always, Kevin, and safe travels back to Louisville.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Mike. Good luck today.
All right. Kevin Kirstein here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. And I do think, you heard him talk about the reason they put Hoosier Philly into the future wager pool that closed last week, and it was because of the fact that she was one of the early noms to the Louisiana Derby. They're thinking that direction. They have to be thinking that direction. They were going to enter her in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile off of just a maiden victory. They're thinking about they think that she is that good. Now, she has to take care of business today. She has to prove, just like Wonder Wheel was trying to do last weekend, she's got to avoid that upset. And there are some really good fillies in that Rachel Alexandra today We just talked about one. Chop Chop's no slouch. Although I don't think Chop Chop is on par with Who's Your Filly. But she has to get past that one today. And then we'll see where it goes from there. But it's a storyline we'll keep an eye on over the next, 77 days as we make our way down the road to Louisville. When I come back, it's this week's edition of Unsung Heroes. Ricky Dukeran is this week's Unsung Hero, longtime groom at Woodbine. His story is really, really good. This is the Equine Forum, presented by Twinspires on HRRN.
Race the Twinspires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, Twinspires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. Twinspires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit twinspires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
The National HBPA's annual conference is fast approaching, March 6th through the 10th at the Hotel Monteleone in New Orleans' historic French Quarter. Don't miss your chance to attend informative panels hosted by industry experts and a keynote address from Louisiana Attorney General Jeff Landry. The conference kicks off with a reception on Monday, March 6th and offers 3 days of panel discussions, presentations, and meetings along with Jeff Landry's keynote speech on Tuesday, March 7th. Attendees will also enjoy an outing at the fairgrounds for racing on Thursday, March 9th. For more information and registration, visit nationalhbpa.com/convention.
Racing fans, Santa Anita's Classic Meet is underway. Join us for great racing over the 3-day President's Day weekend. And don't forget, President's Day Monday is also Dollar Day with $1 beers, sodas, and $2 hot dogs. On Saturday, our main event is named in honor of the Great Sunday Silence, as fillies and mares will go 6.5 furlongs down the Hillside Turf Course in the $100,000 Wishing Well Stakes. On Sunday, California-bred fillies and mares will go 6 furlongs on the main track in the $100,000 Spring Fever Stakes. And on Monday, we'll honor one of the greatest Calbreds of all time, 2-time Breeders' Cup Classic winner Tiz Now, with the $100,000 Tiz Now Stakes for older horses at 1 mile. Fans, don't miss the first coast-to-coast Pick 5 each weekend. It's a $1 minimum bet with a player-friendly 15% takeout, covering 5 races from Santa Anita and Gulfstream Park. Just east of Pasadena in Arcadia, Santa Anita. It's the great race place.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by Twinspires.
Heroes in the world of sports are not uncommon, oftentimes thrusting themselves into the limelight through unimaginable feats.
Back behind the ball, Woods puts it.
And in! He has done it! Tiger is back! Tiger is back on top! Tiger Woods, the 2019 Masters champion.
And breathtaking performances.
Here's how you count to 8. 3, 2, 1. And for the 8th time, college basketball's national championship trophy is coming home to Kentucky.
But behind every great hero, there are others. Individuals who play a crucial role in the achievements of those we read about in the headlines. The ultimate team players, content to stand behind the curtain, embracing their place as a vital part of a sport's success. In horse racing, these are the unsung heroes.
I tell you every single week on this segment that the sport is filled with unsung heroes, and nobody knows that better than Ricky Dukeran, who is this week's unsung hero. He was going down an interesting path to begin his life, and it wasn't a path that he wanted to go down, and he found horse racing, and the people involved with horse racing saved his life. The folks at Woodbine put out a wonderful story about Ricky, and Ricky is with us now to talk about his journey in racing and how he's gotten to this point where he is today. Ricky, congratulations on being this week's unsung hero, and I really, really appreciate the conversation.
Thank you very much.
You know, that article, by the way, and I'll give credit to Chris Lamont, who put the article together, did the interview with you, and it was really well written. Folks can go read it at woodbine.com. But I wanted to invite you on the show here today, and for this segment in particular, because your story is so perfect. It's not just you that I would consider to be an unsung hero, but it's everybody that kind of helped you along the way. So Take it from the beginning. Tell me your story.
Well, to put it in basketball terms, like college basketball terms, I was like on a walk-on scholarship, basically.
Yep.
I just came out of nowhere. It was just by chance. One day, my friend Stephen Flatts just said, "Let's go to the racetrack. I'm going to show you something different." And that's what happened. I walked through the security gates, and man, I never walked back out.
What was going on in your life at that point that the title of the article, you said horse racing saved me. What was going on in your life that horse racing helped you overcome?
Well, at that point in my life, I really had no direction. I was just living it as it came to me. Whatever was shown to me, I just dealt it with the way how I know how to deal with it. I really had no purpose. I was just a hot-headed kid trying to just survive.
Yeah. So your friend Stephen Flatts, ends up asking you to take a ride to Woodbine. You walk through the doors, as you just mentioned, and your whole life changes from there on.
It did. It did.
What do you remember about going to the track for the first time?
I think the first thing that came to me was the smell. Smell of horses, the smell of manure. It was something new, pungent. The smell of horses.
Yeah,
that was the first thing I noticed. So, but I transitioned into it very good. Now the smell is like perfume.
Yeah, it becomes something you get used to, and you really, it becomes a part of you. Not just the smells, but the sights of the racetrack too. So when you first go to the track with Stephen, take me from there. Where does the journey go from there?
I just started out just as a hot walker, and man, the first day it was quite boring because I didn't know what was going on. I didn't even know how to put a shank on a horse. I didn't even know how to hold a shank, but everybody there showed me what to do. And the first day was kind of rough. My feet were sore, and then the second day transitioned to something better, and I just kept learning every day.
Did you ever see yourself doing this for a living?
Never. Like, that's the thing is back then I didn't know what was going to happen. Like, I didn't know what was going to happen in my life. I didn't know if I was going to wake up one morning and be dead. I didn't know, but the racetrack, it gave me something to do.
How long did it take you to get used to being around the horses and working with them?
I'd be lying if I said instantly. It took a bit of getting used to, just for the fact of, I didn't want to get hurt. I didn't want a horse to kick me or step on me. So I had to take my time and be very careful as to what I did.
So you start off as a hot walker and then get into grooming and working around the horses. And you go from that relationship with Steve. That leads you into a relationship with Leroy Trotman. So tell me about that.
He's an amazing, amazing human being. He didn't have to do what he did for me, but it wasn't that he was trying to do something. He was just being himself, right? So just being around him, man, I seen his work ethic, and he taught me everything that I need to know. Him and Steve Owens, they taught me everything I needed to know. And it wasn't easy. I mean, Steve's not a very, he was hard on me. But, I took it all in stride,
When you first met Leroy Trotman, he was a groom, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, he was the assistant trainer at that time for Steve Owens.
Yep. What did Leroy do for you that helped you?
Man, I can't put that all into words. He's done some amazing things. Just like being an example, a real example in front of you. there's all the stories that we always talk about, people who were examples, and, I was fortunate to be in front of one.
What do you think was the most valuable lesson he taught you?
Make something out of nothing. That's probably the main thing, because, in terms of horse racing, we didn't really have like the so-called quote-unquote big horses. But still, we worked on it, worked with what we had, and made something out of it. So I think the main thing that I took away from Leroy is just try to make something out of nothing.
No, you were able to do that, and you had to do that on the night of August 4th, 2002. There was a fire in Barn 7 that took the lives of 32 thoroughbreds, which included all 14 of Owens's horses. And you recalled that story so well in the article that Woodbine put together. What do you remember about that horrific night?
I think the one thing that goes through my memory is just like sitting because that barn was like close to the track, and I remember sitting on the road and just watching it. I just watched it all just go right down, and I just sat there and watched it. We couldn't do anything, and I sat there and just watched it, man.
Yeah. You mentioned a horse by the name of Legal Air. That was one of the horses that did not make it that night. Tell me about that.
No, he didn't make it that night. He actually won a race, the night before. And it was, he didn't make it,
How did that moment, watching that all unfold, how did that moment change you, Ricky?
At that moment there, I was so lost because, I'd finally got to Woodbine and finally, working, collecting a paycheck, trying to get myself together. And then just to watch it all go down, I didn't know, like I was lost for words, because in my mind now that I didn't know anybody else at Woodbine, like I didn't know no one else. So I thought that would be the end of it for me, and I'd have to go back, and start all over again. So I was lost. I think the main thing, I was just in shock. I just sat there and watched it, man. And then when Steve and Leroy came, it was just like, oh, I felt so bad.
Yeah, and it was Steve, again, after the fire, who helped to kind of guide you through that period, right?
Yeah, when Steve was trying to get back together, we went to Florida, and we stayed at a house in Florida together. And it was really then that I really got to know him on a different level. And I think he got to know me on a different level there, too, and the respect is there.
No, it's a pretty remarkable story. Ricky Ducran is this week's unsung hero, and it is not just about Ricky. Ricky has had so many people help him along the way. Ricky, your role right now in racing, what are you doing now?
It's been a long journey these days. I'm just enjoying it even more, man. I'm just taking it easy, enjoying it more. I'm getting a little bit older. My body has taken a toll over the years. So these days, I'm just taking it easy, enjoying it, really enjoying horse racing because I really love it. I enjoy the community more than anything these days. Just everybody who's around. Everybody who was around when I got there, and they're still around, and I enjoy seeing those people. I enjoy seeing the new people there, too. So I just really enjoy the community, man.
That's one thing that people have told me over the years is when they get ready to retire from the sport or walk away from it, they say the one thing they're going to miss is the people. And that's exactly what you're saying here today.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's a family. It becomes a family at the racetrack. And, Ricky, you certainly know that very, very well. If you're going to think back on some of your favorite memories
in your time in racing. What are a couple of those memories going to be? Can you share a couple?
Well, in actuality, I do have a favorite memory in horse racing, and it's not about a big horse that I took care of or won a big race or anything. Funny thing is, one year I was in Florida. I was the assistant trainer for John Ross, and I had a horse there at the time. The vet, Dr. Fox, had told me that this horse will never make it as a racehorse. I'm back there, and I was still young and arrogant, and I remember telling him, "Don't doubt what I can do, Doc." And I was arrogant saying that, but at the same time, I wanted to prove the Doc wrong, that I can make something out of nothing. And he was the most ignorant horse. There was nothing pleasant about him. No one would say, "Oh, I like this horse. He's so cute and cuddly. He's my favorite." Nah, he wasn't that type of horse. But, man, I worked my butt off just to see if I can get him to the races. And you know what? Put in the work. We put in the effort. Man, he won first time out. And I remember calling the doc. I said, "Doc, remember what you told me?" He went first time out. I think that's one of my favorite memories, man.
Wow. Yeah, it's a great story. And, Ricky, I'm sure that, we mentioned Steve and his influence on you. If you were to pick out your personal unsung heroes in your life and in racing, who would they be?
My personal unsung heroes in life at the racetrack, man, it would be every single room and hot walker back there, because we don't get the recognition that we rightfully deserve. Financially, socially, we don't get the recognition in this industry that we deserve, because we are the backbone of this industry. All of us are unsung heroes, because just like I have a story to tell, everybody else has got their own individual story, right? But everybody back there, they're all heroes, man.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, Ricky. That's exactly why we created this segment a few years back, because we want to shine the spotlight on people, the grooms, the exercise riders, the people that don't often get the recognition. They don't find themselves in the headlines, but they are a vital part, a critical part of making racing successful. And Ricky, congratulations on being this week's Unsung Hero, and thanks for telling your story here this morning.
Thank you very much.
All right, this is Ricky Dukeran, Unsung Heroes, presented by Woodbine Entertainment. I'm going to be back right after this short word from Woodbine.
Attention horsemen, make plans now to race at Woodbine in 2023. The thoroughbred meet begins in April, and Woodbine will distribute more than $64 million in purses. Plus, you'll enjoy world-class racing and training facilities with top turf racing in North America over the prestigious E.P. Taylor Turf Course. Woodbine's convenient proximity to Kentucky and New York, along with a 9-month racing season, make it the perfect place to compete this year. Shipping incentives may be available, so don't delay. Contact Director of Racing Tim Lawson today and visit Woodbine.com for more information.
If you know someone you feel deserves to be recognized as an unsung hero in our sport, simply email their story and their contact information to me, and I will do my best to have them join me on this segment in the weeks ahead. That's Mike at horseracingradio.net. When I come back, I'll turn our attention to Texas Preview Night at Sam Houston. I'll welcome Frank Hoff, who is the Assistant General Manager at Sam Houston. Stay with me. It's the Equine Forum, presented by Twinspires on HRRN.
Race the Twinspires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, Twinspires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. Twinspires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit twinspires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Sam Houston's live thoroughbred meet runs through April 8th and features a new afternoon racing schedule for 2023, with racing Friday through Sunday and a first post at 1 p.m. Central. The meet is highlighted by the Houston Racing Festival on Saturday, January 28th, Texas Preview Day on February 18th, and Texas Champions Day March 25th. Canadian racing fans are invited to play Sam Houston at simulcast outlets throughout Canada and on HPI Bet. For more information, visit shrp.com.
I'm here with Joe Brown Nicholson of Nicholson Insurance Agency. Joe, how do you value a horse for insurance?
Well, Mike, it's easy to value a horse when purchased out of a public auction. The insured value would simply be the auction price. But insuring homebreds can be a little more involved.
How so?
Well, factors such as a stud fee, conformation, pedigree, sales and race records of siblings, even popularity of the stallion, all come into play.
How closely do you work with owners in determining a horse's value?
Well, the owner has a pretty good idea of the horse's value, so generally it's just a matter of agreeing to the request and having the policy issued.
For all your equine and general insurance needs, including farm owners, liability, homeowners, auto, and more, contact Joe Brown Nicholson at nicholsoninsurance.com or call 859-224-7080. That's 859-224-7080. Nicholson Insurance Agency.
There's plenty of thrills at Gulfstream Park during the championship meet with live racing Wednesday through Sunday. Don't miss the Triple Crown prep races, including the Fountain of Youth Stakes on March 4th and the Florida Derby Saturday, April 1st. Enjoy the races outdoors from the Carousel Club, our Feast in 10 Palms, offering a premium view of the races. For stake schedules, reservations, tickets, and more, head to GulfstreamPark.com.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by Twinspires.
And Zerelda now pokes ahead in front going down the side of the track. 5 lengths back to No Mas Tequila. Wits 10-10. Tahitian Breeze looking to take the inside route. They're off the turn and they're into the stretch. Bernie still being challenged by Zerelda. Bernie starting to stay clear. No Mas Tequila rallies on the outside. And No Mas Tequila strikes the front and blows on by. No Mas Tequila, pulling clear with each and every stride. No Mas Tequila. Not tonight. Tahitian Breeze. Then came Zerelda and Bernie. It was No Mas Tequila to score.
Welcome back to the Equine Forum, presented by Twinspires on this Saturday morning. Mike Penna, Baron of the Backstretch, getting ready to wind down hour number 2. And to do that, I welcome Frank Hoff, who is the general manager at Sam Houston. You just heard Nick Tamaro with the call of last year's Miss Blue Bonnet Stakes, and that was No Mas Tequila getting the victory. She returns as a 6-year-old to defend her title later today. She's 2-1 on the morning line, and she is part of a tremendous Texas preview card at Sam Houston. And Frank is with me now. Frank, good morning.
Good morning, sir. How are you doing today?
Doing great. Happy preview day. I know that this is the prelude to Texas Champions Day, which comes up toward the end of March. But what a 5 $75,000 stakes races and plenty of options for bettors. You have to be thrilled with the way everything came together.
Yeah, I think it's a real testament of what's been going on down here the last few years. Originally, we had some Texas bred stakes that, would get 6, 7 horses, and they would, do okay. But, the plan was to really kind of build something down here, especially at Sam Houston, and created the preview day a couple of years ago, kind of move some of the stake races all together, kind of just make it a setup for Texas Champions Day. And, obviously, if you look at the field sizes, it's quite a bit of Texas breds going in stake races, which is great. And I think it's obviously we're in some different situation right now this season, but obviously this is a great sign of how things have been going down here the last couple of years.
Yeah, and a great development just a couple of weeks ago, where it was announced that Sam Houston will indeed be able to send that simulcast signal out now, so people will be able to watch and wager on these races around the country.
No, unfortunately, there's been we've not been able to export the signal.
I thought that was a done deal.
No, unfortunately, the Racing Commission made a decision that they would allow export, but obviously when we're dealing with some other legalities from the corporate standpoint, we've unfortunately been unable to export the signal.
Oh, okay. I thought that was a done deal. That's my bad. Where does it go from here?
Obviously, much smarter people at higher places are certainly discussing and looking at options, but it's a pretty complex issue. That, obviously, hopefully we can get some resolution here at some point. But right now we're still in the same spot unable to export.
Okay. But for our listeners that are up in Canada, they will still be able to watch and wager, correct?
Yes. Everything that was in plan before or to this point is still in place. Texas and Canadian and international occasions, unfortunately for most of the states here.
Okay. All right. Well, let's hope that does all come to fruition officially very, very soon. I know that would be huge for not just Sam Houston, but the Texas racing industry as a whole. In terms of what we're going to see today with those 5 stakes races, they'll take place during the day. First post 1 p.m. Central, so 2 o'clock Eastern. Tell me what folks can look forward to seeing.
I think everyone, it's a great day. I know of weather here, so those who come to the track are going to, treated to really nice racing and weather. It's gonna be a great program. Like you said, 9 races with 5 stake races. Again, some of the best in Texas running today. They're going to be competitive, large fields. So I hope those who are able to wager on it take advantage of it and watch a good card down here from Houston.
Will there be some special opportunities with guarantees or special wagers that have been created, considering that there are 5 stakes?
Well, we'll have all stakes pick 5 and pick 4. No guarantees, unfortunately, but obviously still the 12% takeout that we've been having for over 10 years will continue. So yeah, it's a good betting card for those who can, and we look forward to putting on a good show down here today.
I got to tell you, I love the name No Mas Tequila, and it's going to be fun to see if at age 6 she can defend that title in that race later today.
Yes, it's going to be great to see with that, and I've certainly said that a couple times myself.
Yeah, well, I'm sure the tequila was flowing after she won last year, and I'm sure it will be. She comes into the race on a 2-race winning streak this year, so she's in great form, too.
Yes, no, I think it's going to be great to see if she can repeat today.
Yeah, it should be pretty special. Who are a couple of the other horses, Frank, that you're going to have an eye on later today that kind of stand out to you on that program?
I think if you look at the Houston Turf Stakes, that's always a competitive group of horses. Sunlit Song and Singapore Flash. It's just a very tough race. Those two always seem to hit the wire at the same time. So, anything that's on the turf here is always a very competitive race. So, I'm just looking forward to a great day of racing down here. So, but that's certainly another race to take a look at for those who will be playing. And, that'll be race 6 that starts the pick 4. So,
yeah, I actually went back as I was thinking of a way to introduce you. I always like to use something that ties into the day or to the theme or whatever it might be. And, No Mas Tequila was certainly a logical choice. But I went back and tried to find race calls from Tu Altazano's career, because she was a brilliant Texas bred. And I was trying to find some of those calls, and I couldn't find anything going back that far that we could use coming into this interview with you. But how about Tu Altazano, who's remembered with a stakes race today? I mean, she was fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, really, again, starting out with the Texas breds and how she finished in her career. I mean, it's a great thing, and we're happy that we've had this race named after her for a very long time, even probably before I got here. So, it's a great way to honor some of the best here in Texas that have run, and looking forward to another edition this season.
Frank, how do those decisions get made at racetracks in terms of determining which horses you are going to honor with a stakes race named for them?
So I can speak from my time in this role. Obviously, we've had a lot of different type of stake races through the years, and maybe some local towns or cities in the area. But one thing I've tried to do through the last few years is just try to honor things that have happened here and taking a look at races that tie back to what's happened here at Sam Houston, because I think that's important. So really it just kind of comes down to, identifying a race that, could have a different change of name and kind of coming to a determination of what that name should be. So, obviously if it's, a horse or that like the turf, or did well here on the turf, you may want to name a stake race on the turf after that particular horse. So that's kind of been my mindset. And the other part of some of the name changes we've had through the last couple of years is, letting people know that the races are ran at Houston. Sometimes you can name a race after something and people may not know where that particular stake race is at. So trying to tie a lot of things back to the city here. We've had, the H-Town and some things like that just kind of make people say, okay, I think that's at Sam Houston Race Park. So that's always been kind of my mindset here. And obviously, if the opportunity comes to rename a race after a horse or someone here, like we did with Bob Bork and renaming our 3-year-old Open, that's something we will continue to do.
What's the weather like in Houston today?
Well, for Houston, it's great, sunny. It's chilly for most Houstonians. It's 35 this morning. It'll probably get to about 50, mid-50s today, but it's going to be a gorgeous weekend. And I think on Monday for our President's Day card, we'll be back in the 80s. So, it's a great weekend of weather. Looking forward to, 9 races today, Sunday, and Monday. Or 8 races on Monday, I apologize.
Yep. Yeah, it's going to be a great weekend, and it all kicks off today with Texas Preview Day. Frank Hoff, the Assistant General Manager, with me here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. Frank, I really appreciate the visit, and all the best, and continue that great work, and continue to fight the good fight with the simulcasting situation there. As I said, I thought it was a done deal. I hope it gets done very, very quickly, and folks around the country can start watching Sam Houston.
I certainly do as well, and I again appreciate the time, sir, and always a pleasure.
Thanks, buddy. Frank Hoff here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. And those 5 $75,000 stakes today, I mentioned kind of the foreshadowing, if you will, or the prelude to Texas Champions Day, which is going to be held Saturday, March 25th. So as we get closer to that date, we'll get a chance to visit with the folks at Sam Houston again and give you an update on what's happening on March 25th. But hopefully by then things are moving in the right direction and rectified with that simulcast situation, because, boy, it would certainly be nice for people around the United States to be able to watch and wager on those races from Sam Houston. All right, when I come back, I'll take a look at a couple of dates in racing history as they apply to this weekend, and I'll tell you what's ahead in hour number 3. This is the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network.
On the battlefield, there's a saying America's military men and women live by. Never leave a fallen warrior behind, ever. Off the battlefield, Wounded Warrior Project operates with the same goal. We leave no warrior behind. Wounded Warrior Project is a non-profit organization created to help our men and women returning home with the scars of war. Whether those scars are physical or mental, we're here to make sure that they heal. And whether it's helping those with post-traumatic stress disorder live a normal life again, or giving much-needed support to injured warriors in veterans' hospitals. Because no one deserves our help more than the men and women who risk their lives to keep us safe. Wounded Warrior Project. We never leave a fallen warrior behind. Ever. Learn more about what we do at woundedwarriorproject.org.
Hi, I'm Danica Patrick and proud aunt. Watching my nieces grow, play, and learn is amazing. But not every child gets to be carefree. 1 in 6 kids in the U.S. are hungry. 1 in 6. That little girl sitting alone at the playground, she can't play like the other kids. She doesn't have the energy because she's hungry. School lunch will be her only meal today. It breaks my heart that this is the reality in our country, but it's something that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste. This food is then provided to families and children in need. Being a kid should be about using your imagination, learning, and having fun. These children shouldn't have to miss out on simply being a kid because they're hungry. To find out how you can help end childhood hunger in your community, visit feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
My battle buddies and I attended the NHL Stadium Series at Yankee Stadium. We had never been there before, and 2 of us had never seen a hockey game. Man, we had the time of our lives. It was great therapy. Ventix, we can't thank you enough.
Every empty seat at a concert, a game, motorsports, or a play
is a missed opportunity to say thanks to a veteran and service member. We can help. We can give our veterans a special event where they too can create their own cherished memories. Find out how by visiting www.vettix.org. That's www.vettix.org. Find out how you can make a difference in a veteran's life.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by Twinspires.
Welcome back. Mike Penna, Baron of the Backstretch, getting ready to wind down hour number 2. I'll tell you what's ahead in hour number 3 momentarily, right after I update you on the results of today's poll question. Is Hoosier Filly the best 3-year-old of any gender racing today? And so far, 71% of you continue to say, no way. Only 29% saying, absolutely, she is. We'll find out. But on this Saturday afternoon, I thought this would be a little bit closer. I didn't expect the gap to be this wide because of what she's done and how she's done it. Now, maybe you're not drinking the Kool-Aid. You're not buying the hype that's out there surrounding Hoosier Filly. Obviously not. 71% of you not buying into that. And maybe this has to do with the depth of the Risen Star field, because that is a really deep and a really strong, probably the strongest Derby prep we've seen to date. Not that the winner's necessarily coming from that race, but it's a deep field. Top to bottom, I think it's the strongest Derby prep we've seen. So that's probably has something to do with it, I would imagine. Time now to take a look at a couple dates in racing history as they apply to this weekend and the days surrounding this weekend. This past Thursday was the anniversary, February 16th, 1999, of jockey Julie Crone becoming the first female jockey to win 3,500 races when she took the third race at the fairgrounds. Yesterday was the 38-year anniversary of jockey Lafitte Pincay Jr. getting his 6,000th career win. He did it aboard Doria's Delight in the 5th race at Santa Anita Park. That was on February 17th, 1985. And 2 more coming up on February 22nd. So later this week, February 22nd, 1969 was when Barbara Jo Rubin became the first woman jockey to win a parimutuel race in America when she rode Cohesion to victory at Charlestown. And February 22nd, 2003, Extra Heat won the Barbara Fritchie Handicap and became the leading stakes-winning filly of all time with 25 stakes wins. So happy anniversary to all those individuals. Some dates in racing history as they apply not just to this weekend, but the days surrounding this weekend. Now, if you missed any portion of the first 2 hours of the program, you know what to do. Simply head back to our website, horseracingradio.net. Check out the podcast at your leisure. You can also do that on every major podcast platform. This is another day where racing will remember and pay tribute to an individual who lost their life recently, and I'm looking for the press release here, but the Permanently Disabled Jockeys Fund, which, by the way, the official charity of the Horse Racing Radio Network, today is going to pay tribute to young Avery Wisman, who died in early January, and they're going to shed light today on mental health. There's going to be a moment of silence across each track, and jockeys will be wearing black armbands in honor of Wisman. So I think that's important. I discussed that with Vernon Bush in the first segment of the show at 8:15 Eastern this morning. If you missed that interview, it was candid, it was powerful, and it was quite honest. Vernon very open about the struggles that he has had in his own life with alcoholism and the different mental health aspects that he personally had to overcome as a jockey and that many jockeys face in our sport. So do yourself a favor, head back and listen to that interview after we finish up at 11 a.m. Eastern. Take a listen to that particular interview, and I think it'll really help open your eyes, too, to what jockeys go through that we don't even realize they go through. Some of the different things that Vernon brought up to me, I was hearing those things for the first time. But my thanks to Vernon for taking time to be with me, and to Kevin Kirstein for looking at that 3-year-old picture earlier in the show, and Ricky Ducaran, our unsung hero, and, of course, Frank Hoff just a few moments ago. Kim Price is in our studio doing a great job pushing all the right buttons. She has one more hour to go because Hour 3 is coming up next. When I come back, I'll kick off the third hour of the program with the Twinspires Triple Play. Joe Kristufek going to join me to share his thoughts on a few races you'll want to keep an eye on later today. At 10:20, Kurt Becker takes you on his weekly stroll through racing history. And at 10:30, I once again welcome trainer Dale Romans and turf writer Tim Wilkin on this week's edition of I Ask, They Answer. If your local station is leaving us at this time, you can continue listening to the third hour of the program nationwide on Sirius 216, XM 204, in the Louisville, Kentucky market on ESPN 680, or on your computer, phone, or tablet with live streaming at horseracingradio.net. Hour 3 of the Equine Forum is coming up next, right after I pause 10 seconds for station identification. This is the Horse Racing Radio Network.
From the rail to your radio, this is the Horse Racing Radio Network.
Prison Star drawing off. He's in front by 15, by 18. Prison Star takes the Belmont, just like his daddy's Secretariat did.
Rachel Alexandra, Macho again. They're coming down to the finish. It's going to be desperately close. Here's the wire. Rachel won. She is indeed Rachel Alexandra, the Great.
Welcome to the Equine Forum, presented by Twinspires.
Include the odds, running a huge one. My Miss Aurelia's between those two in with a late shot. Can Royal Delta hold on? My Miss Aurelia is trying to get her late. Royal Delta, My Miss Aurelia, here is a champion again. Royal Delta has won the Breeders' Cup Ladies Classic.
Star of the North is approaching the 8th pole and 3 lengths clear. Wink Texas back there in second. That's a lot of bling is trying to race into that second spot. Star of the North for a final 16th of stargazing on Texas Preview Day. And her name is Star of the North. Impressive in the 2 Altazano.
Now, here's Mike Penna.
Welcome back. Hour 3 of the Equine Forum, presented by Twinspires on this Saturday morning and every Saturday morning. Mike Penna, Baron in the backstretch, happy to have you along for the ride this morning, right up until 11 a.m. Eastern. 2 hours down, 1 to go, and we continue to celebrate some of the greatest ever to do it on the racetrack, as you just heard in our opening montage of race calls. Risen Star, Rachel Alexandra, Royal Delta, some of the best ever being remembered with stakes races named in their honor today. Huge day at the fairgrounds. We kick off the 50 points races in the Kentucky Derby Points Series with the Risen Star Stakes. I'm going to talk to Joe Kristufek about that momentarily with the Twinspires Triple Play. Plus, you're going to hear from Kurt Becker coming up at 10:20 Eastern Time. And then 10:30, I once again welcome Dale Romans and Tim Wilkin to the program for this week's edition of I Ask, They Answer. So an awful lot of ground to cover. Without further ado, let's welcome in my friend Joe Kristufek with the Twinspires Triple Play. Joe, good morning. Welcome, my friend. Can't wait to hear your selections on a huge day at the fairgrounds.
Yeah, it's been a process to get to those selections. There's a lot of really wide open, competitive, fun races, and you mentioned the 50 points and the Risen Star and the Rachel Alexandra field, you know, with some star power potentially in Hoosier Philly. But whoever earns that 50 points in the Risen Star is going to have to work for it, because it's a wide open race with a little bit of everything signed on.
You know, Hoosier Philly is brilliant. She has been brilliant for her first 3 career starts. And when you look at her resume over her first 3 starts and compare it to Rachel Alexandra and how she started her career, I'm going to ask Dale and Tim at 10:30 if it's blasphemy to say that Hoosier Philly, that we should be talking about her being better than Rachel Alexandra at this point in her career. What do you think? Is that blasphemy?
Yeah, it's weird because Rachel started her career earlier, didn't she? Didn't she debut in like May or June or something? And she kind of worked her way forward from there. And she was always that, she always had that natural speed that was her weapon. And Hoosier Philly, I think, has some speed, but she hasn't had to try in any of her races. She's been bored in those last 2-turn races, so she's never been set down. And Tom Amos was out there talking about, greatest horse, most promising horse I've ever trained. He's had a lot of good ones early on, and he's kind of pulled the reins back on himself a little bit because he doesn't want to get too far ahead of himself. I think Saturday's going to tell us a lot about her. And, as a fan, Mike, and I'm a bettor, I'm a gambler too. I like to play the races. But as a fan and as a publicist for Fairgrounds, I would really love to see her put on a show and run in the Louisiana Derby.
Yeah, that would be incredible. And I had a chance to talk to Tom last month after her 2-year-old campaign, and that was not off the table. He said he was going to kind of take it race by race and day by day, talk with the owners, and maybe if she continues to do well, we might see her against the boys, which would be really, really cool.
Yeah, I mean, she's in Kentucky Derby Future Wager 4, and I know Darren Rogers and Kevin Kirstein, Gary Palmisano, they put those, horses together for that field to be bettable. And I'm sure they reached out to Tom Amos and said, Tom, we want to put her in the pool. Is there any possibility if this, if that, if this, that we could see her the first Saturday in May? And if Tom would have said no, then they wouldn't have put her in that pool. I guarantee it. So the door is open, probably a little bit more than a crack, and it'll open a little bit more if she runs huge on Saturday.
Yeah, you're right. She has to take care of business first in the Rachel Alexander and then move on from there. And by the way, back to Rachel for a second. Her first 3 career starts, people will forget. She debuted in May, as you mentioned. She was beaten. She finished 6th in her career debut. She came back and broke her maiden next time out and then was 2nd in the Grade 3 Debutante Stakes at Churchill Downs. So all 3 starts at Churchill, but she only won one of those first 3 starts to begin her career. And then, as we know, she goes on to the Hall of Fame campaign, 13 of 19 victories, 13 victories in 19 races, $3.5 million in earnings. Long term, there is no comparison yet, but at least to this point, with Hoosier Philly being 3 for 3, who knows? The sky's the limit. We'll see if she can continue on later today. But you have 3 races you have selected for our listeners. They can play them any way they want to play them. They can do it, of course, at twinspires.com. And we're going to kick it off with race number 8, which is an 8-horse field. It is 1 1/16 on the main track for the 3-year-olds. Number 6, Banishing, Joe, is the 5-2 morning line favorite for Brendan Walsh. What do you think? Banishing, or do we beat Banishing in this spot?
What a great race, man. Whoever wins this race is almost assured to go, you would think, in the Louisiana Derby. This race produced Cyberknife last year. We saw him win the Arkansas Derby, so maybe they would go somewhere else. But this is a loaded field. A lot of these horses deserve to maybe run in the Risen Star, but their trainers are, taking it one step at a time, including Brendan Walsh with Banishing, who scratched the morning of the LeCompte. He was on the undercard. He had a little bit of a stall incident and missed about a week of training, but all reports are that he's doing well. Steve Asmussen told me the other day on the phone that First Defender is the most talented horse he's running on the card on Saturday, and he's got 3 in the Risen Star, so that tells you something, and the pedigree says he should be able to stretch out, and he's got speed. There's going to be a lot of hype on First Defender. There's going to be a lot of hype on Banishing. And Cagliostro did not run all that fast in comparison to some of the others that ran 1 1/16 on LeCompte, but he had a terrible trip. He was pinched out at the start, lost about 5 lengths, and then was 4 wide the entire journey, was 6 wide on the turn for home, drew even while still in hand. It was a little bit green in the stretch, and to me, he seemed like he had a lot more to give. He's 8-1 in the morning line. If you got 5-1, I think you should be happy with that. But with all the attention that First Defender and Banishing are going to take, and I think either one of those can win, I think it's an awesome race. I wouldn't mind seeing one of those win, moving forward. But, like I said earlier, I'm a horse player. I'm a gambling man. I look for value. And I think Cagliostro is better than he looks on paper, better than the speed figure will indicate. And that 8-1 price certainly is inviting.
Cagliostro, the proper pronunciation of that name.
Correct.
Yeah. It's funny because I went back and looked
looked the name up before we connected here to do this segment, and what I could find is that Cagliostro was an Italian adventurer, and it was described as a self-styled magician.
I love. I mean, Cherie, David, and Gordo, their team, they do a great job. And I told you this before, a huge fan of responsible horse naming. They come up with creative names. They come up with names that you have to Google. And when you Google it, you say to yourself, oh, that's pretty cool. So, yeah, no doubt. Thank you for giving me that tidbit of information. I'll use that on Saturday.
Yeah, it was really neat. So Cagliostro, number 1, 8-1 on the morning line in the 8th race at Fairgrounds today is Joe's top pick there. We'll move on to the second leg of the Twinspires Triple Play, which you're going to go with race 11. That's the Grade 3 Fairground Stakes. This, along with the Risen Star and 5 other races, are all part of the All Stakes 50-cent pick 5, which is races 9 through 13, and a huge $500,000 guarantee.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, the guarantee is great because it allows you to say to yourself, okay, there's going to be at least $500,000 in the pool. And not only that, the bigger piece of information that's necessary is it's a 15% takeout rate. So you got a 14-horse Risen Star. You've got a potential single in Who's Your Filly in the sequence, although a lot of people that look at speed figures think she's beatable. I'm on the other side of the fence with more people that say she could be a superstar. But it's a great sequence, $500,000 guaranteed. We should go way over that. And that 15% takeout is horse player friendly, obviously, as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. And head over to twinspires.com to make sure you play that.
Fairgrounds. It's freaking Mardi Gras, Mike.
Oh, that's right, too. Yeah, that's right, too. Okay, so what's the environment like down there right now, Joe?
Man, I wish I could enjoy it more. My counterpart, Kevin Kilroy, he enjoys it to the max. I don't know when that guy sleeps because he does a heck of a job, but the parades and the live music and the vibe and, the weather for the most part has been good. It'll be, good for the big card. It's just tremendous. And we get the day off Sunday, and then we race on Lundi Gras Monday and Mardi Gras Tuesday. And tune into the Signal. I got a pretty cool costume lined up for that.
Oh, boy. Break out the beads. Joe Kristufek in New Orleans. It's crazy down there right now, and it's a great time with all the great racing action. All right, let's talk about the Grade 3 Fairground Stakes, race 11. 2 Emmys. Number 2 is the morning line favorite for Hugh Robertson, 3-1 on the morning line. How'd you see this one?
Yeah, I wouldn't normally go with one of the turf races for the triple play, but I think the turf is evened out quite a bit from when horses were winning from off the pace and the outside fence like they were in the Colonel E.R. Bradley when Gentle Soul, and take nothing away from him, he was awesome that day, rallied 9 wide to beat 2 Emmys, who was coming off the layoff, and 2 Emmys kind of got a little bit lost out there. I think he was on the wrong lead. I think the horse was a little bit confused by how James Graham was riding him. But the course has evened out lately. You can be on the inside. You can be forwardly placed and still be successful. And I think 2 Emmy is going to turn the tables on Gentle Soul. I like those 2 in the race. You got Tiz the Bomb, some other horses in here that are fresh faces versus the Colonel E.R. Bradley. But 2 Emmys at 3-1 on the morning line. I think he's a legitimate turf horse, even as a 7-year-old. He won the Mervyn Muniz last year in pretty dominant fashion, and he loves the fairgrounds. And I think he's sitting on a huge race.
Yeah, he does love fairgrounds. 10 starts over that turf course, 3 wins, 4 seconds, and a third. So you'd expect him to show up with his best effort. 3-1 on the morning line under James Graham. Number 2, 2 Emmys, Joe's top pick in the Grade 3 Fairground Stakes. All right, Joe Kristufek, one more to go. It's race 13. It is most people would say the highlight of that card, the Grade 3 Risen Star, 50 Derby points on the line for the winner. Who wins this one?
Yeah, so many different ways you can go and a little bit of everything. You've got speed, you've got stalkers, you've got closers. I rattled my brain to come up with a top selection, but I think you need to try to find value. I think Sun Thunder will provide value. I think Krupi will provide value. I like 2 fills off of LeCompte. Tappas Conquest is 6-1 in the morning line. A lot of hype about him. I wouldn't be surprised if he vied for the favoritism with Victory Formation. Cox has got 3 in here, and I like the third of that trio. I like Angel of Empire. If you go back and watch the replay of the Smarty Jones where he got beat 3 lengths by Victory Formation, Joe Talamo asked him in the gallop out to continue on, and I asked Brad Cox about it the other morning, and Brad said, yeah, that was by design. He said this horse wants at least 1 1/8 miles. So he gets 1 1/8 miles. He gets a long stretch. He gets an honest pace, if not a fast pace, to run at. He's been training at Oaklawn, so the local hawkers here aren't going to be on him. He's not going to be steamy, so he should fly under the radar. 8-1 in the morning line, and he gets Luis Saez, and that's certainly a positive as well. So Angel of Empire for me, I think you'll get every bit of 8-1. A lot of different ways you can go. Crouppy's very interesting as a maiden too, because I think he'll love the long stretch and the big track at Fairgrounds. But yeah, eventually after much internal deliberation, Mike, I decided on Angel of Empire.
Yeah, I can see why. I can see your logic there. I want to go back to the favorite Victory Formation for a minute. 3-1 on the morning line in a 14-horse field. Victory Formation is going to have to break from post 13, going 1.8 miles on that main track today. Is that a big detriment going that distance at Fairgrounds?
Well, I've used this line several times already, and I'm going to use it several times more. And you're a football guy, so you get it. Victory Formation will not be able to take a knee in this race.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's 1.8 miles, so it's a longer run into the first turn than if it were 1.70 miles or 1.16 miles. There's some speed inside of them. You see Tappert, you see Smart Strike, you think, 9 furlongs shouldn't be an issue. Flavion Pratt is back. I mean, this is a nice horse, man. He looked awesome when he won the Smarty Jones, but that's a short stretched mile race. This is a long stretched 1.8 miles. And as the favorite, again, can he win? For sure he can win. But again, when you talk about the outside post, you talk about the other speed in the race, you talk about the longer distance, and you talk about the short price. To me, you got to go price shopping. He'll run well. I mean, Brad wants to find out. This is the time of year, Mike, where you got to find out. Can this horse go 1.8 miles? Because if he can, he certainly can't go 1.25 miles. He's got 12 other ones in his barn that he needs to sort out and try to figure out which ones he wants to represent him in the Kentucky Derby, which I'm guessing there'll be maybe a half dozen. And if there's a half dozen of them, he'd be the first ever trainer to have that many. I think Todd Pletcher's had 5 twice, and Dwayne Lucas has had 5 once. Nobody's run a half dozen horses in the Kentucky Derby before. Brad Cox got about 12 or 15 of them that might be capable of getting there.
Speaking of Todd Pletcher, we don't see him run maidens in Grade 2 races very often, but he's doing that with Crouppy. You sent out a tweet earlier this week pointing out the fact that Crouppy has faced some really good competition, even though he's 0 for 5, and that this could be a really nice spot for him this afternoon.
Ran against Disarm in the debut. I think he's one of the better ones Steve Asmussen has. I believe he's going to run next at Oaklawn, Steve told me. Instant Coffee, the winner of the LeCompte. Classic Catch, who beat him 2 races ago, ran really well to do it. And then we talked about Brad Cox. Brad Cox has 10 horses in the Kentucky Derby Future Wager Pool 4. Slip Mahoney isn't one of them, but he's good. And he lost to him narrowly last time and made this monstrous move. Slip Mahoney narrowly lost to Tappert thrice in his start before that. You look at the pedigree, Curlin, she'll get better with age. Dam side of the pedigree, she's a half-sister to Beautician, Motom, and Red Ruby. So the pedigree's there, the connections are there. And Todd Pletcher said, 9 furlongs, long stretch, Fairgrounds, I don't care if this horse is a maiden or not. He deserves a chance.
Yep, he certainly does, and he's in there. He's 15-1 morning line, and we'll see if he can pull off a bit of an upset there in the Risen Star later today. But for Joe, it's going to be number 6, Angel of Empire, who is 8-1 on the morning line as his top pick in that race, which, again, would be another mild upset in this year's Risen Star. So just to recap, Joe, you're going to go with the 8th race at Fairgrounds today. You'll take number 1, Cagliostro, who is 8-1 on the morning line. In the Grade 3 Fairground Stakes, race 11, you'll go with number 2, Two Emmys, who is 3-1. And in the Risen Star, as we just mentioned, number 6, Angel of Empire. And that will round out the Twinspires triple play that you can bet any way you like at twinspires.com. Other than the pick 5, Joe, anything else from Twinspires happening today that bears watching?
Yeah, they've got a $2,500 hit it and split it promotion on the late pick 5 with that $500,000 guarantee. You mentioned it already. You're going to play that pick 5. Play it on Twinspires. There's a free $2,500 up for grabs as a bonus if you're to hit it. And then the Twinspires leaderboard competition rolls on, earning points along with the horses on the road to Kentucky Derby 149. $100,000 in that prize pool. You know, if you haven't played already, I suggest you get in now because this is where the 50-point races start. If you're already involved in it, keep playing. $25 win bet. You earn points along with the horses. It's a fun competition, and $100,000 split amongst the top 100, and the top 2 players get the dream trips to Kentucky Derby 149 and get to sit on the set with Chap and I and maybe handicap a race too.
Oh, what a treat that's going to be. Joe, I appreciate the time here this morning.
I want to bring you on the set one time, Mike.
Oh, my goodness.
Join us one day. We'll promote the show, all that stuff.
Yeah, but you know what they say. I mean, the whole face for radio thing, it's 100% true with me. Nobody ever wants to put me on TV. Trust me. And nobody wants to hear my selections. I can guarantee you that.
You are the best-looking radio dude or podcast guy in horse racing, and I'm going to tag you with that description right now.
Wow, brutal.
Michelle's a lucky gal. Yeah,
we got some really bad-looking dudes out there. If that's the case, if I'm at the top of the heap, let me tell you.
Ah, man. Well, right on. Just be willing to accept it. It's all good. But I'd love to have you on. You know that. And thanks as always, man. Always enjoyed doing this. And to all your listeners out there, get tied on, seatbelt, popcorn, whatever, and get ready for a great card of Fairgrounds coming up for the Risen Star.
It's going to be a great day. Joe Kristufek with the Twinspires Triple Play. Joe, enjoy it. We'll look forward to seeing you on TV, my friend.
All right. Cheers. Take care, Mike.
All right. And that is your Triple Play. Head to twinspires.com to place those wagers at your leisure, but do it at twinspires.com. Coming up next, Kurt Becker takes you on his weekly stroll through racing history. And at 10:30, I ask, they answer with trainer Dale Romans, turf writer Tim Wilkin. This is the Equine Forum, presented by Twinspires on HRRN.
Race to Twinspires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, Twinspires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. Twinspires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit twinspires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Sam Houston's live thoroughbred meet runs through April 8th and features a new afternoon racing schedule for 2023 with racing Friday through Sunday and a first post at 1 p.m. Central. The meet is highlighted by the Houston Racing Festival on Saturday, January 28th, Texas Preview Day on February 18th, and Texas Champions Day March 25th. Canadian racing fans are invited to play Sam Houston at simulcast outlets throughout Canada and on HPI Bet. For more information, visit shrp.com.
Curling, the classic sire.
They're off in the Derby City Distaff. And obligatory.
And it's got to be Clariere in the fifth stakes. Nest, much the best. She won by better than 10 lengths in this coaching club. American Oaks, Cody's Wish with the upset in the Fargo. And Marathon has won the personal ensign stakes.
Curling, standing at Hill and Dale.
It's time now to shine the spotlight on the Darley Taking the Reins Performer of the Week.
There's 1 furlong to go. 2 fills clear by 3s on the wrong lead. Hayes strikes trying to make it tight late, time running out. 2 fills finding more. And 2 fills splashes home the 4-length winner.
2 fills, the son of Darley Stallion Hard Spun, scored that big win in the Street Scent Stakes at Churchill Downs on October 22nd. That's a victory that makes 2 fills your Darley Taking the Reins Performer of the Week. Darley Stallion Hard Spun. No stallion under $75,000 could top Hard Spun's 11 black type winners in 2022. One of those was 2 fills, winner of that Grade 3 Street Sense at Churchill. He'll look to stay on the Kentucky Derby Trail in the Grade 2 Risen Star this afternoon at the Fairgrounds. Learn more about Hard Spun and all the Darley Stallions by visiting darleyamerica.com.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, Presented by Twinspires.
Hello, I'm Kurt Becker. Thanks for joining me as I take another stroll through racing history presented by Keeneland. He was an American-bred horse which became European Horse of the Year after winning the signature races of both England and France in the same season. His name was Mill Reef. Foaled on February 23, 1968 at the 2,000-acre farm of American philanthropist Paul Mellon in Upperville, Virginia, Mill Reef was a bay colt by former American champion juvenile Never Bend. Mellon traditionally kept some of his homebred stock to race in North America while sending others to campaign in Europe. Mill Reef would be designated for the latter category. When asked why he chose Mill Reef for his European contingent, Mellon remarked that he did so mainly on the advice of his American trainers, Preston and Elliott Birch. Mill Reef was small and had considerable European influence in his bloodlines, both of which were likely reasons that Mellon's American advisors believed the colt would be best suited for the grass courses of England and France. Mill Reef would land with trainer Ian Balding at Kingsclear in Hampshire, England. Balding, a former rugby player, was young, just 31 years of age at the time, but he had succeeded the accomplished horseman Peter Hastings at Kingsclear. And Balding would be training Mill Reef in a location rich with racing history, as 7 winners of the Epsom Derby had trained at Kingsclear between 1868 and 1899. As a 2-year-old in 1970, Mill Reef won on debut at Salisbury by 4 lengths. He then won the Coventry Stakes by 6 lengths on opening day of the Royal Ascot meeting, before winning the Gimcrack Stakes at York by 10 lengths in what was described by the press as an electrifying performance. He would add the Imperial Stakes at Kempton and the Dewhurst at Newmarket, sandwiched around a loss by a short head in France to eventual European champion juvenile My Swallow. Given a juvenile campaign which produced multiple stakes wins against only 1 loss, it would seem that Mill Reef was well positioned for a run at the English Classics at age 3. Still, there were those who doubted he would have the stamina to be successful at longer distances. The critics pointed to the fact Mill Reef's sire had never won beyond 1 mile and 1/8. His maternal pedigree, they said, was full of European horses which had run well at 2, but failed to make an impact in the Classics at 3. And a loss to Brigadier Gerard in the 2,000 guineas at Newmarket early in 1971 only seemed to confirm what the skeptics had been saying. After all, if Mill Reef couldn't even win at 1 mile, how could he possibly hope to handle the Epsom Derby distance of 1.5 miles? The date was June 2nd, 1971, and Mill Reef, a small but well-proportioned colt, was among 21 horses heading to the post for the 192nd running of the Epsom Derby. Jeff Lewis was the jockey, sporting the original Mellon silks, black with a gold cross, the ones which always represented Mellon in European races, separate and distinct from his American Rokeby stable silks of yellow and gray. Down the stretch, Lewis had Mill Reef in perfect position for the final furlong.
As they come into the final furlong now, it's Mill Reef coming on from Lombardo and Linden Tree on the far side, and Mill Reef it is. It's Mill Reef, the favourite, coming on inside the last furlong. Linden Tree in second place, Lombardo third, Irish Ball running on very strongly to try and get third place. As they come up the line, it's Mill Reef the winner, Linden Tree second, Irish Ball third, Lombardo fourth.
Mill Reef's victory in the Epsom Derby marked the first English Classic win for Paul Mellon, the first for trainer Ian Balding, and the first Derby win for jockey Jeff Lewis. Mill Reef also became the 3rd American-bred winner of the race in 4 years, joining Sir Ivor and Nijinsky. Later in his 3-year-old season, Mill Reef would beat older horses in the Eclipse Stakes at 1.25 miles at Sandown, breaking the stakes and course record. And he won the weight for age King George VI and Queen Elizabeth Stakes at Ascot at 1.5 miles. In October, Mill Reef added a victory in the Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe, winning France's premier race and becoming the first American-bred ever to do so. He broke the stakes record in the process in the 1.5 mile event. Mill Reef would be named European Horse of the Year for 1971, and the following season would earn honors as English champion older horse. He retired from racing with 12 wins in 14 starts and earnings of $764,000. Retiring to the English National Stud at Newmarket, Mill Reef would earn titles as champion sire in Great Britain and Ireland in 1978 and 1987. He was perhaps best known in the U.S. as the sire of Lashkari, winner of the inaugural Breeders' Cup Turf in 1984. Mill Reef died in February of 1986 at the age of 18. Paul Mellon, who developed his love of European racing as a young man while studying overseas, took particular satisfaction in having bred not only Mill Reef, but also the Horse's Dam and Grand Dam. Put another way, Mill Reef meant a great deal to Mellon as a third-generation homebred. But one of Mill Reef's grooms during his racing career perhaps put it best. He said of Mill Reef, quote, "He was something to brighten the morning," end quote. Please join me again next week when I take another stroll through racing history presented by Keeneland. For HRRN, I'm Kurt Becker.
Another fantastic story from Kurt Becker. I tell you every week, nobody weaves a story together like Kurt Becker, and my thanks to Keeneland for making those segments possible. If you missed any of Kurt's Stroll Through Racing History segments over the past year or so, you can go back and listen to all of them on our website, horseracingradio.net. They're there for you on a very special podcast page for Stroll Through Racing History. When I come back, Dale Romans, Tim Wilkin. It is this week's edition of I Ask, They Answer. This is the Equine Forum presented by Twinspires on HRRN.
Race the Twinspires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, Twinspires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. Twinspires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit twinspires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
New to Coolmore America for 2023 is Jack Kristufek, a son of top sire Munnings and a three-time Grade 1 winner. Jack Kristufek was an 8 3/4 length winner on debut at Saratoga at 2 before winning the Grade 1 Champagne with a whopping 102 Beyer. His 3-year-old campaign included wins in the Grade 2 Pat Day Mile, the Grade 1 Woody Stevens by 10 lengths, and the Grade 1 H. Allen Jerkins. Jack Kristufek stands at an introductory fee of $45,000. Call the team at Ashford today to book your mare before he fills up.
A Grade 1 winner of nearly $2 million, Silver State hails from the sire line of legendary Claiborne stallion Danzig. And his second dam is full sister to Kentucky Derby winner Monarchos. After winning the Oaklawn Handicap, Silver State defeated Knicks Go in the Grade 1 Metropolitan Handicap. Now his first foals have arrived. Grade 1 winner Silver State, standing at Claiborne Farm.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by Twinspires.
I just feel like I haven't found enough superlatives to describe this athlete. She is different than anything I've ever had. I'm not, a Pletcher or a Chad Brown or a Bob Baffert that deals with champions over and over again. But I have had a lot of good horses. I've been doing this since 1987. And I know what I'm looking at, and she's just different than anything that's ever come through my barn.
That's trainer Tom Amos sharing his thoughts on his undefeated superstar Hoosier Filly. With Wonder Wheel's upset loss in last weekend's Suncoast Stakes, is today's Rachel Alexandra favorite now the one to beat for the Kentucky Oaks? And should we be making the case that Hoosier Filly is better than Rachel? And which region of the country has the strongest contingent to Kentucky Derby hopefuls? That's another topic I'll talk about with Dale and Tim. Plus, they will share their thoughts on the life and the career and the legacy of the late Hall of Fame trainer, John Beach. All of those topics and much, much more are straight ahead on this week's edition of I Ask, They Answer with trainer Dale Romans and turf writer Tim Wilkin. And it's all presented by the University of Louisville Equine Industry Program in the College of Business. It all starts just 30 seconds from right now.
Learn the business of horses in the world's only accredited equine business program, the University of Louisville Equine Business Program. The University of Louisville has a legacy of excellence educating and developing industry leaders for over 35 years. Classes are taught by industry experts in state-of-the-art state-of-the-art facilities located in the heartland of America's equine industry. The University of Louisville Equine Business Program. When it comes to horses, we mean business. For more information, visit business.louisville.edu/equine.
All right, well, first of all, so many of you have taken time to listen to the show over the past year plus that we've been doing it now, and you've helped to make it one of, if not the most popular segment on this show every single week. And last weekend, Tim taught Dale not to mess with him when it comes to picking the winner of the Super Bowl. Let's go straight up. Eagles or Chiefs? Who gets the victory?
I'm going Eagles simply because my good friend Terry Finley and Debbie Finley are from the Philadelphia area. They're going to the game, and I want to cheer for them, even though it's hard to go against a guy like Mahomes.
Well, if Mahomes is healthy, and the reports are that he's a lot healthier than he was when they played Cincinnati. For my money, I'm not going to bet against Patrick Mahomes.
Lunch at Spring Street Deli, Saratoga, no spread.
Okay.
All right, well, there you have it. So, Timmy, you can pick horses. You can also pick football games, too. So, as the winner of that little side bet last week here on the show, you now get 30 seconds to gloat, and I hope you're planning to order every single thing that's on that menu when Dale takes you to lunch.
Well, gloating is not the way I roll. I mean, I'm not going to get up on the soapbox and, tell the world that I know more about football than Dale Romans, even though I do. It's just not the way I do things. I mean, I feel bad for Dale that, because he's good friends with the Finleys, that clouded his judgment in the Super Bowl, and that caused him to lose this thing. Patrick Mahomes is probably the best quarterback we got going right now, and he proved it in the Super Bowl. But I'm not a hard guy. I'm going to give Dale a chance to get even. I'm not going to. I'm going to give him a chance to go double or nothing on another bet, which we will determine at a later date. Maybe a horse race, maybe a baseball game, maybe a game of jacks. But we're going to figure something out, and I'm going to give Dale a chance to get even.
Well, I will tell you that was the most passive-aggressive arrogance I've heard from you in a long time.
I learned it from you.
I'll tell you something about jacks. In the sixth grade, just to stay out of class, we had a jacks tournament. I finished third in the sixth grade jacks tournament, second in the chess tournament, third in the checkers, because I figured out the more I won, the less I had to go to class. So I'll play in some jacks. The only thing I don't know.
I can play jacks
people
too
don't
now.
know. Yeah, people don't know Tim was a college basketball star, so I'm not going to bet him on that either.
I don't know about being a star, but I played a little bit. But
right.
we'll figure out another bet, because I really, if Dale had won, I'm sure he'd give me. Maybe he wouldn't give me the opportunity. He might just take the lunch and run. But I'm giving him another chance.
That's appreciated.
All right, we will figure that out. Timmy, a very gracious, humble winner after picking the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl last week. And we'll find out what that other bet's going to be in the next couple of weeks here for sure. We'll come up with something. Let's move on to the first horse topic of today's show, and that involves Wonder Wheel and that upset loss in her 3-year-old debut last Saturday, which certainly opens the door for a new leader in the division. Undefeated Hoosier Filly, who returns in today's Rachel Alexandra, really seems to be a logical choice to do so. Is she now, guys, the undisputed leader in this 3-year-old filly division? And would you consider it blasphemy if I were to say that she is better than Rachel? Timmy, you want it first?
Yeah. Well, those are some pretty loaded statements right there. I'm not holding that loss against Wonder Wheel. I mean, that was her first start of the year. She got beat the neck in the Suncoast by a 38-1 shot. I mean, she's still a pretty talented filly, but Hoosier filly, Tommy Amos has did a great job with her as a 2-year-old. Now she hasn't run yet as a 3-year-old. I mean, it's I don't think it's time to anoint her the next Rachel. I think it would be blasphemy to say that she's better than Rachel right now. And remember, when Rachel Alexandra, her 3-year-old campaign, she went 8 for 8. They beat the boys 3 times, including the Preakness. So, Hoosier filly is definitely a horse that I don't know if she's I'm not going to put her at the top of the 3-year-old division right now because she hasn't run as a 3-year-old. I'm still putting Wonder Wheel on there. Hoosier filly, let's see what she does today. and then we'll talk again.
Yeah, I'm going to put her at the top already. I've loved this filly all along, and I know Tom very well. We end up eating dinner together a lot of nights in Louisville. We're on the same pattern, so we hang out at the bar together. But he's been raving about her for a long time, and you know, he entered her in the Breeders' Cup. It may have been a different filly champion if they'd have let her run. She didn't have any points, and she was, I think, only had one start, and they didn't let her in. It would have been interesting to see what would have happened if she had run in the Breeders' Cup. But I'm gonna say she's the leader in the clubhouse right now. But don't even use her in the same breath with Rachel yet. It's a long ways to go before you can start doing that.
Yeah,
Rachel
well, Dale, you bring
special fillies of all time.
You bring up a great point too about Tom Amoss considering running Hoosier Philly against the boys in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. I asked him about that, and here's what he had to say about that attempt to get into that race.
I had talked to the owners after that first start, and I told them, I said, look, I'm interested in doing something that's, unprecedented. I want to run her in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile off this one win, off this one start. So I was going to take a very raw but talented young filly and make the transition from 1 to 2 turns off of one race and run against the best in the nation. And we pursued that. We were number 15, and they run 14, and we were not going to get in at entry time. And so we chose to run at Churchill, and she did her thing.
She did her thing. She's done her thing in all 3 career starts. But, guys, that does beg the question, and Dale, I'll ask you first. Should Tom and her connections be thinking about the first Saturday in May rather than the first Friday?
Well, he's got a great spot to bring her out today, see how she does. And I would say you'd have to start thinking that way, the way this field's shaping up and things are looking. If she's dominant in today's race, I wouldn't put it past Tom to think outside the box a little bit and at least give her a prep and a points race against the boys.
Yeah, you think she'd probably, she has to get some points to be able to run the first Saturday in May. But the one thing that's really cool about this whole Hoosier Philly story is the ownership group. I mean, that Gold Standard Racing stable of Bill Stone and Rod Radcliffe, this is their first horse. I mean, this is, you come out of the box and and this is the horse you got. I mean,
they're ruined.
That's a Hollywood story in itself.
Yeah, they're ruined now. There's no way to go, right? Where are you going to go from here?
There's no way to go but down now.
You know the old story, the guy that owned John Henry, it's the only horse he ever owned. He never bought another one. He said, what am I going to do? I claimed him for $25,000, retired the richest race in history, richest racehorse, and he never bought another horse. They might be in the same boat.
But it would be great for the game if Hoosier Philly keeps progressing and becomes a dominant player. I mean, because, you can say, the 3-year-old division, and it's still early, but there's no horse that's dominant right now that's eligible to run in the Run for the Roses. So, it would be great for the game to see, and it would bring so much more new interest into the game if Hoosier Philly was going to line up in the starting gate in the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, she may take the same type of path that D. Wayne Lucas took last year with Secret Oath, where she stays with the girls for this start, maybe one more start, and then takes a shot, say, against the boys in one of the 100-point races, maybe the Louisiana Derby. Of course, she has to take care of business later today, but assuming that she does, that might be a potential plan too. Dale, would you like that idea?
I'd love it. I love it. That's one thing I don't like about the points system is that if a filly's dominant in her division and she's thinking about coming over, she doesn't even get to be a part of the conversation. And I always liked that, even like Rachel talking about whether she should or shouldn't run, even though she didn't. I thought it made things interesting.
Yeah. Well, there are options on the table for Hoosier Philly, for Tom Amoss, and for the connections. We'll see which way they decide to go. But, again, she has to take care of business later today in the Rachel Alexandra Stakes. The other big race on that program today, and there are several great races, but the other one that's going to be in the spotlight is the Risen Star Stakes, and it's the first of 7 Derby prep races offering the winner 50 points. Which region of the country, guys, appears to have the strongest group of Kentucky Derby hopefuls? Dale?
That's a good question. I mean, with 14 in today's race, I want to go with New Orleans right now. And, it's a good field of horses. I think that they have 14 quality horses in there, and we'll see what happens.
If Baffert's horses were eligible, I'd say the West, because I think he's loaded. But you're going to see the trickle down where these owners are going to have to get points if they want to run in the Derby. I mean, one of them's already moved. That Harlow cap that's going from Bob to Steve Asmussen. He just arrived in Steve's barn this week, and he's running in the Risen Star. But I guess if you have to say right now that you can't include those West Coast horses, I'm going to go agree with Dale, say that, the New Orleans, because of, Brad Cox has, I think, four of the top 12 horses that are in the leaderboard for the Derby right now. So I would say that region would be the strongest. Although you got to give a little bit of nod to the Florida horses because Forte's there. And, Rocket Can came out of that race the other day, and, he's in Florida. I mean, Blazing Sevens is in Florida. So right now I'd say the New Orleans area, but I'm going to give a little bit of a nod to Florida too.
Yeah, and a great point about the Baffert horses too, because right now those are all going to have to transfer. So, Timmy, to your point, California would look like a logical choice because of how well those horses have been running, but those owners, if they make that decision, may transfer those horses to other trainers not running in California. So we may see some of those horses come east. But at this point, certainly the fairgrounds in New Orleans looking pretty strong, especially with that big field in today's Risen Star. We'll see if anybody sets themselves apart from the rest of the field. And let's face it, we haven't seen anybody jump up. I guess you can make a case for Arabian Night and say, okay, Arabian Night has separated a little bit. But there's a long way to go. Nobody has really stood out and catapulted themselves to the head of this 3-year-old division, have they?
Nope.
Not yet they haven't. Sure, like you say, Arabian Night, but there's a lot to be seen what happens in that situation.
Yeah, and we don't know what Forte is going to do when he comes back, pointing for the Fountain of Youth Stakes later at Gulfstream Park. All right, time now to honor our good friend Nick Zito as we play a couple rounds of Right or Wrong.
Yeah, right or wrong. Am I right? What do you think? Right or wrong?
No, Nikki, I always think you're right. Let's find out what Dale and Tim think about these two topics. Brad Cox and Steve Asmussen, they each have 3 horses entered in today's Risen Star Stakes. So, guys, if I were to tell you that none of those 6 horses will be standing in the winner's circle later today, would I be right or wrong?
What do you think? Right or wrong?
Timmy?
Well, numbers, well, the odds-wise, you'd have to say, yeah, right. I mean, no, wrong. One of those trainers is going to have one of those horses get in the winner's circle. I mean, Brad Cox has had such a strong hand in the 3-year-old division in the early stages, and Victory Formation's the favorite in this one. But there's so many things that happen in horse racing, and there's a couple of good horses in this race that. Curly Jack from Tommy Amos, you can't throw him out. 2 Phils from Larry Ravelli, you can't throw him out. Determinedly from Mark Cassie, you can't throw him out. I don't think there's anyone that's running away from Victory Formation. I mean, there's 14 horses in the race, but if I'm going to say that, if someone putting a gun to my head saying it's either going to be Steve or Brad Cox that's going to win this race, I'm going to say yes. One of those 6 horses is going to be in the winner's circle.
Okay. It's hard to go against either one of those guys. They got some pretty strong hands, but I'll still take the other 8. My odds will be on my favor that way. And like I say, Victory Formation out of the 13 hole, that could be a problem. He's got to be a really good horse to overcome the post position. So I'm going to say that someone else wins this race besides those 2.
All right. And I'm glad you bring up Victory Formation because that is the second right or wrong topic that I had for you guys today. And Victory Formation, undefeated, perfect 3 for 3. He is one of those 3 Brad Cox runners in the Risen Star, but he's drawn post 13 in the 14-horse field, as we just pointed out. If he overcomes that post, and he does remain undefeated after the Risen Star today, I'm going to say that he should be considered the horse to beat on the first Saturday in May. Is that right or wrong?
Yeah, right or wrong. Am I right?
Dale?
I'm going to say you're right. If he wins out of 13-hole today and he does it in a fairly impressive fashion, he's the horse. I mean, like you say, you got all the turmoil around the Baffert horses, so you kind of got to put an asterisk next to any of them that you talk about. So I'm going to say if he wins out of 13-hole, he's going to be my favorite heading into next week.
Well, Victory Formation has speed. We know, anyone that's been following his career knows that. He's going to have the speed, I think, to clear and get over on the first turn. And if he's able to do that, and that Brad Cox doesn't seem to think that he doesn't think that'll be a problem to post. So I think if Victory Formation does what he's supposed to do in this race and stays unbeaten, yeah, he's going to be, after today, he's going to be the horse that probably a lot of people are going to think has a big chance to win in Louisville. But the way this game goes, next week there's more races. The week after that there's more races. and then there'll be more horses that do something special or don't. And there could be a new leader in the clubhouse. But if Victory Formation overcomes the 13, wins impressively, yeah, he's going to be the horse that people are going to say on the day tomorrow that is the horse to beat. It might not stay that way, but yeah, he could definitely be the horse for the day.
Yep, very much a game of what have you done for me lately, and Victory Formation will try to be that horse after the Risen Star later today. Okay, we'll bring back Right or Wrong again next week, as we do every week here on I Ask, They Answer, but I want to move on and leave us enough time to talk about this final topic, because, guys, Hall of Fame trainer John Veach passed away on Wednesday, and among John's notable horses were 1985 Breeders' Cup Classic winner Proud Truth. He had Sunshine Forever, Brian's Time, Devona Dale. He had Alidar, who couldn't find a way to get past a firm, but he certainly provided us with one of the greatest rivalries our sport has ever seen. So I'm going to ask you, and Dale, I'll come to you first as a colleague of John's, if you will, a fellow trainer. How should racing remember John Veach, and how will you personally remember John?
I'm going to remember John as one of the smartest guys I ever met in racing, and a good friend, and it's such a talented horseman and horse trainer. But also, he's from a family of royalty in our game. His father, Sal Veach, was a great horse trainer. You go back to John came on the racetrack as a kid, just like a lot of us did. But he came back during the golden days when it was at its best, when it was the most premier sport in America. And he saw a lot of great things, and he handled a lot of great horses. He did it with class and with dignity. And at the end of his career, when he became a steward in Kentucky, he did such a good job for us there. I know that it didn't end well, but I really think that he was wrong at the end of that. I wish things had changed. He'd gone out a little bit different in Kentucky, but I think he did a wonderful job. But people should know how smart he was and what a student of the game he was, how well-read he was. And just to sit there, and I like to tell my stories, but I love to sit there and listen to John's. We had a few drinks together a few different times and just listen to the old stories and all the good horses that he and his father had either trained or seen through the golden days in New York. And he will be greatly missed.
Yeah, the thing about John, I mean, it was unfortunate that John happened to bring a great horse, Alidar, along the same year that Affirmed was there. And that became one of the greatest rivalries in the history of thoroughbred racing. People that don't even know racing know or have heard Alidar and Affirmed and Alidar. And the thing about John, he had a great amount of success with a lot of different racehorses. And I remember when I first met him, when I was just a greenhorn reporter working up for the Saratogian newspaper, going out to the backstretch, and you met a guy like him, and he was just as classy of an individual as could be. He would take the time to, mentor people a little bit. He knew that, some of us, maybe me included back then, didn't know what the heck we were talking about. And he would do things that made it easier for you to do your job better. And, I remember being in Kentucky when he was a steward, he always took time to say hello, and, just a classy, well-polished individual. And, it's just sad that he's gone, because he was part of the really golden age of racing. I mean, with like Dale said, with the family stuff. And it's sad that he's not with us now.
Yeah, very well said, guys. And I have a very similar story to you, Timmy. When I started working at Keeneland back in 2002, John was one of the first people that I had ended up being introduced to at that time, and he was so kind to me. And much like you, he made me feel like I belonged, and he was willing to take time and talk with me, even though I was completely green in the sport at that time. And I'll never forget that. He became a friend over the years as my radio career progressed, and then even sat in with us as an analyst alongside me in the booth of our Kentucky Derby broadcast back in 2017. So somebody that I respect and admire and really enjoy being around. And I'm gonna miss John Veach for those very same reasons that you guys pointed out. All right, one final point to make here on this week's show before we wrap it up. So, guys, this is your opportunity to let people know what's on your mind. One final point. Timmy, I'll come to you first.
Well, with all the construction that's going on at Belmont Park, they're going to the talk has ramped up a little bit about possibly having the Breeders' Cup back at Belmont Park. And God, I hope that does happen. It hasn't been there since 2005. I mean, obviously it's not going to happen the next few years because we're out in California, but I think that the Breeders' Cup needs to be in New York. Part of me also would say that the Breeders' Cup should also be in a warm weather climate, but horse racing has a genuine, unique, juicy history in New York, and the Breeders' Cup should be back there again. And once Belmont is complete, I hope that does happen.
Yeah, I want to talk about Steve Asmussen for a second, and the fact that he's 10,000 winners. And I want everybody to understand how phenomenal that is. I don't know how you mentally could do it. It's such a tough gig and so many horses. And we don't really talk about Steve enough on this show, I don't think. He's one of the great horsemen and a good friend, and I tip my hat to him.
Guys, well done here today. Enjoy the weekend. Good luck at the races, and we will do it all over again next Saturday morning.
See you, folks.
Sounds good, Mike.
All right. And don't forget, if you have a topic you want to hear Dale and Tim debate, you can email it to me, mike@horseracingradio.net, and I'll get those questions worked in for you over the weeks ahead. I Ask, They Answer is presented every week by the University of Louisville Equine Industry Program and the College of Business. I'll be back with more. This is the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network.
When it's time to paint the fences and barns, think Farm Paint. At Farm Paint, you get the industry's best coatings and paints factory direct at low, low prices. Farm Paint is your source for quality paints, roof coatings, dustless arena footings, and more. You can purchase online or drop into a Farm Paint store near you with locations in Heart of Bluegrass Country at 700 Phillips Lane in Lexington, Kentucky, Columbus, Ohio, and Sandusky, Ohio. Buy factory direct and save at farmpaint.com. That's farmpaint.com.
Hi, Tony.
Hey, Matthew.
There's a reason why Tony's Steaks and Seafood is my favorite restaurant. It's because I want to feel part of the family. Isn't that right, Tony?
That's right. There's a saying on the wall that I truly believe in. There's always room for one more at our table. We just want you to be part of our family.
And believe me, you will be. It's Tony's Steaks and Seafood right across from Triangle Park. Visit them at Tony'sSteaksandSeafood.com.
I'm William Shatner, and I've been around a long time, but I'm truly humbled when I see the real battles our brave, paralyzed veterans have faced defending our freedom.
I was on a routine patrol, and we were in the desert of Kuwait, and the vehicle flipped and landed on top of me, which left me paralyzed from the waist down.
Okay, folks, this is heroism. That's why I'm proud to support Paralyzed Veterans of America. Go to PVA.org to learn how you can make a difference.
People do some pretty cool things in their 40s and 50s. Why should saving for retirement be any different? I mean, they go back to college, learn new instruments, start skateboarding. Whoa! Okay, maybe that one's not for everybody, but saving for retirement is. With aceyourretirement.org, you can get on track with your retirement savings no matter your age. Just have a 3-minute chat with Avo, the friendly digital retirement coach from AARP. You'll get personalized recommendations based on your input that are easy to understand and work with your lifestyle. It's quick, easy, and free. Plus, it's sponsored by AARP, so you know they got your back.
Woohoo! Gnarly move, Dad.
Thanks, sweetie.
So wherever you are in your retirement savings journey, head to aceyourretirement.org and start chatting with Avo today. That's aceyourretirement.org. A message from AARP and the Ad Council.
Want to get the latest HRRN content directly on your computer or mobile device? Then subscribe to our podcast using the Podbean app or Apple Podcasts. Just go to hrrn.podbean.com on your computer and click follow, or download the Podbean app and search HRRN. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts and listen to our latest episodes anytime. Don't miss a thing. Subscribe to our podcasts today. You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by Twinspires.
Well, there's no better way to follow racing, breeding, industry news, and more than with Blood Horse. You can go to bloodhorse.com. You can check out Blood Horse Plus, the Blood Horse Daily app, Blood Horse Magazine, and their social media pages. No one covers thoroughbred racing, breeding, and our sport like Blood Horse. Well, my thanks to all of our guests for making this show possible here this morning, and a wonderful remembrance of the late John Veach from Dale and Tim in that previous segment. We replayed my conversation, my hour-long trainer talk show with John Veach this past week. That podcast is now up on our website at horseracingradio.net. Go back and listen. It's a wonderful visit with John and a great tribute to somebody who was very, very special. All right, don't forget, if you missed any portion of the show, head back to the website, horseracingradio.net, and check it out on every major podcast platform. For my producer, Lee Delapina, and Chauncey for handling all of our social media, I'm Mike Penna. Thanks for listening. Hey, Super Bowl's done. Watch out. Go Steelers.